Am I audible?
Slightly increase your volume.
Is it fine now?
Yes. Okay.
It is audible now.
Yes.
Okay, good evening to everybody.
ঠিক আছে.
Good evening.
With the support of co-chairperson Dr. A.G. Pandurangan, I invite all the eminent speakers of this very important session. Our theme is forestry and biodiversity and spatio-temporal changes, integrated forest management policy for ecological sustenance and ecotourism for livelihood. Under this theme, we have session 1, coastal forestry, mangrove dynamics and temporal changes, biodiversity including algal species. We have 10 presentations that will be made by 9 speakers. Dr. Saravanan Raju will be making 2 presentations. And as we are all here and the first speaker is available, I would like to introduce Dr. K.S. Murali. Dr. Murali, as a matter of fact, we know each other for quite a long time, since the days he was there in French Institute. Dr. Murali has been working on various issues for more than 30 years with his experience from academic, administration and research work, which has molded him into a very good developmental worker and contributing to the development of the downtrodden in the society. From his days of Agricultural University in Bangalore to today as Executive Director of Professor M.S. Swaminathan Research Foundation, Dr. Murali has been traveling and trekking summits. In fact, from French Institute, Dr. Murali went to UNDP, from there to as WFP, and from there to IDRC, MS Swaminathan, Professor MS through Terry. And I am fortunate to have us traveling and trekking summits. In fact, from French Institute, Dr. Murali went to UNDP, from there to WFP, on how he served on the editorial boards of several peer-reviewed journals, trust boards, and he is a member of American Association for Advancement of Science, and he has worked for USAID on the Asia Regional Expert at IUCN for NTFPs, and he has touched upon all the UN conventions of CBD, UNCCD, and UNFCCC. And he has contributed much to the GEF project, particularly on mainstreaming biodiversity into industrial sectors. With this, I humbly invite Dr. Murali to make his presentation on spatial and temporal dynamics of the mangroves of Indian coast. Welcome, Murali.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ravi, for that very liberal introduction. And I think, your friendship has made me to talk quite a bit about it. And thank you so much. And of course, I have come a long way, I must tell you, when I started working with Dr. Ravi Tupalli. And of course, he is a friend, colleague, and philosopher with me for many, many years. Without much ado, let me start my presentation. I hope I can make this presentation. Can you make me the host so that I can? Hello.
Yeah, just
Can
you
you
open your presentation and go to the share screen.
share? Okay. I'm unable to open my desktop. Can you please make me host?
Otherwise, doctor, you can open your presentation and minimize it and then go to share the screen.
I'm not able to. Okay, let me check.
You just open the presentation
On your desktop.
and then minimize it.
Yeah, but I'm not getting that one. Unless you make.
Yeah,
Now,
Yes.
can you hear?
Yeah, we got it.
Okay, great, great, great.
Please go ahead.
Okay, okay. Thank you. And I'm going to. Yeah. You can see the presentation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, please.
Yeah, only
Okay.
thing is you can full screen.
Yeah, full screen. Very, very
You can
excellent.
go ahead, no problem.
Okay, thank you so much, and I'm very happy to Dr. Himadri Sen. He introduced me to this excellent opportunity, and also I'm quite happy that there are many people who are much more knowledgeable than I towards mangroves. Although I started mangrove work way back in 2002-3, but then I did a lot of other work. And as you know, mangrove is one of the very important ecosystems that are highly productive and diverse. Over the last several decades, mangrove are not considered as much useful ecosystem, but later we understood that for various reasons, much importance is now started being given. So in this presentation, I will try to understand how many underlying factors have led to reduction of mangroves in terms of area, and also how our efforts can really make the mangroves can grow beyond our expectation. See, if you look at the globe, yeah,
Hello.
yeah,
Your slide
yeah.
is missing.
No, sir, we are not able to show your presentation, sir.
Yes, slide is not.
Now I have changed the slide. Can you see now?
No, sir.
We can't see that. That's why I interrupted. Sorry for the disturbance.
Okay.
Just a moment, sir.
Yeah.
Murali, sir.
Yes.
First, you open your slide.
Okay.
Yeah. Now you hover your mouse on the lower part of the screen. There is a share screen. Green button.
Okay. Let me check.
Yes.
Share screen.
Yeah.
How will be that? There is a green.
If you take your mouse below the zoom that screen where you are seeing others and yourself.
Yeah.
If you take your mouse on the extreme bottom, yeah, that zoom buttons, control buttons will appear.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I have
there is-
seen.
Yeah, there you share, click share.
Can
Now,
you
if you click share, then a window will open. So there you will find various windows. The window in which your PowerPoint is being shown as open, you click that.
Yes. It's not opening.
Dr. Murali, can you first open your presentation?
I have opened the presentation.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
now
visible, no?
Minimize it.
Acha, minimize it.
Yes.
Okay.
Then you go for share the screen. Down below. There is a green.
Yes, yes. That's what I have done now.
Yes.
Then share. Open preference.
Now you have to select the PowerPoint presentation. There will be small windows within that.
Windows will be there.
See, it is already come.
Yeah, it was there already.
Yeah, but I am unable to.
Why don't you minimize your window? That shows your figure.
Can you see now?
Oh,
No.
No, we are able to see your picture.
it was
Okay.
there earlier, opened. Okay.
Okay.
Sir, if you are not able to do, then we will do it from our end. But then it is a PDF file, sir, which you have
Yes.
shared with us. It is a PDF file.
Yes.
So that
Yes.
may not open like a PowerPoint, but
Okay.
still I hope so you will be able to manage. Okay, we are sharing from our end then.
Sure. Please.
Yeah,
Yes.
now it is there.
Okay. You can see at least the first slide, right?
Yes.
Okay, that is what all that I said a few minutes ago was that I was trying to let you know the importance of mangroves. And if you go to the next slides, that is global distribution of mangroves, you can see that there is a to the right side between Australia and so China, there is a huge archipelago which talks about how important, how the number of species in this region is quite high. It has come down. Okay, now. No. One slide before.
Second slide.
Second slide, yes. See, you can, that's
Yeah.
Stop it. Yeah, stop it. See, all these borders that you can see are the mangrove areas, and particularly if you look at the right side between Australia and Indonesia, there's a huge archipelago which has quite a cluster of mangroves, which very high diverse mangroves, which constitutes anywhere between 26 to 35 species. But the other areas, which has like in Africa or South America, there are very few. In fact, you can get only 1 or 2 or less than 8 species. So this, essentially, you will have a typical diversity that you can find in mangroves, where if there is in the close to the equator, you will get richness, species richness, but as you go to the polar region, you will get low species. So this is what we also, and particularly in the Southeast Asian context, you get very high diversity of mangroves. Next one, please. Next slide. So in this slide, I'm trying to share you. See, one of the mangrove distribution seems to be dependent on sediment supply and differing, landscapes. And in this picture, we see 3 distinct spaces. I have indicated three at 3 places, 2 at 3 places, and 1 at 2 places, which only means that these are all the places where during the continental shift, they have really gone on to differentiate the land areas into mangrove areas. Particularly the relative sea level raise seems to be an important factor for mangrove. In fact, about 17,000 years ago, South China seems to be one of the hotspots of mangroves, particularly the pollen records you could find of Brugueria, Sonaracea, and Rhizophora species. Next one, please. In fact, the NIFA is evolved during Cretaceous period, according to one of the studies, almost like 75 million years ago. And today's most dominant Rhizophora has evolved around 45 to 65 million years ago. Similarly, the continental drift seems to have spread some of the species from Asia, particularly Southeast Asia, to Australia. These are all some of the very important findings. And Abyssinia pollen was found in current Siberian deserted regions, which means that was once upon a time a mangrove forest area. Mangrove seems to be contained due to cooling off. So when the earth cooled, aridity and dryness have changed over a period of time. I think there is a cyclicity of nearly 65 million years of cooling and heating of the earth. And during cooling periods, mangrove seems to be getting reduced because of the current conditions, and particularly in Oligocene and Miocene regions. Next one, please. I am trying to tell all these things because mangroves have natural cycles, but our mangrove today has been destroyed not because of any environmental changes. Of course, there is environmental changes which is impacting on the mangrove spread, but there are many prehistoric uses of mangroves that have denuded the mangroves today. Coal, that is primarily the was extracted from Rhizophora species for at least about 300 to 400 years ago. This has been recorded. Wood and shellfish was traded in various places, particularly in Africa, and that has reduced the mangrove diversity and also the area under mangroves in African countries. And after 1760, industrial use of mangroves have really started, particularly wood. Developing ships and other things are very important using this wood, and therefore this was in very high demands. Next one, please. Next one, please. Hello? Yeah. See, total mangrove area is about 15.6 or 16 million hectares as of a report by FAO and UNEP. And this is supposed to, I don't know how much percent, it must be less than 1% of the total forest area that we experience in the terrestrial ecosystems. High population pressure in coastal areas, particularly because of the development of shipping yards and so on and so forth. Plus the port has really made the population enhance in the coastal regions. Apart from that, aquaculture, infrastructure development, rice and salt production has led to the conversion of mangroves into conversion of greater areas of mangroves into various other alternative uses, and therefore mangroves have got reduced in areas. Numerous case studies describe mangroves over time, but information on status and trends of mangroves area extent is by and large very scarce at the global level. But of course, there are some studies, particularly in the regions such as Sundarbans, which is very high concentrated area in mangroves. There are many studies, and similarly, a couple of other areas like Australia have many studies that gives you lots of dynamics, both in terms of species dynamics and aerial spatial dynamics. But by and large, the information on mangroves is very scarce. Sorry. Next one, please. Yeah, in the recent past, maybe 20-30 years, the aquaculture is very rampant in most of the South Asian context, and about 52% of the forest mangrove were degraded, and about 28% because of aquaculture, at least in Bangladesh, and about 11% loss was reported in Bangladesh. Agriculture, over 50% of the mangroves is lost in Myanmar due to rice cultivation. And urban growth has resulted in loss of mangroves. And also there are many changes in the policies that has affected mangrove stability in the area. Next one, please. In this picture, you see in South Asian context, particularly in Sundarbans, you can see there's a lot of mangrove, nearly 10,000 square kilometers of land. That is the highest perhaps recorded in the world, together India and Bangladesh. And if you see closely look at the Indian side of Sundarbans, it is there you can see lots of red patches, which only means they have been degraded relatively compared to Bangladesh context. Similarly, we have in the west coast, we have in the Gulf of Kutch region and also Gulf of Cambay, there is mangroves, and there are other smaller patches in Goa, and of course another is when we have one in Bitrakanika and also in Koringa in Andhra Pradesh, which are quite high. Similarly, in Batikalova also we have quite a bit of mangroves in good condition that exist today. Next one, please. Yeah, if you look at in these areas, mangrove areas particularly, the loss and gain that has been recorded here. Bangladesh has nearly lost, of course, it has gained about 16,000 hectares, but sorry, say 6,500 hectares and lost 16,000 hectares. So in net loss about 9,065. Similarly, India also has lost about 28,000. Pakistan data, there is some problem. I think the mangrove area in Bangladesh and Pakistan looks very alike. This is not my data. This is the data which I recovered from Giri et al., which tell the same. Pakistan seems to have gained some areas, at least 26,000 hectares. Sri Lanka, we don't find any difference. So in that context, by and large, in all the countries in South Asia, there is loss, except in Pakistan. Next one. If you look at this Pichavaram mangrove, this is my colleague Ramasubramaniam and Nagarajan have done this work. In this spatial temporal variation, you find that 1977 to 2017, almost like 40 years, there is a huge difference in fact, some of our, the increase in the area of mangroves here is about 400 hectares is primarily because of the efforts of MS Swaminathan Foundation, particularly restoring the mangrove forests. And in the next one, in the next slide, please, you will get a series of pictures from 1986 to 2014, where in the same spot it has been, you can see the circle that you see there is a huge difference in Godavari mangroves. And there is a difference in pictures primarily because of the remote sensing that we used. The first one, 86, is primarily a Landsat imagery, and the last one is LIS4 with about 5.6 meters in resolution. All these indicate that, you know, there is our efforts can really improve the mangroves in the current status, and all that we need is some kind of a not only results oriented approach to restoration of mangroves, and also quite a bit of funding that is required. Next one, please. Yeah, this is I am talking about these two pictures is that the estimation of mangroves has not, as I said, is not been proper in many occasions, primarily because we are not able to get to that area properly. And we have used remote sensing wisely along with combination of different satellites and airborne sensors, which was able to give us some precise estimations of mangroves. The geospatial and temporal database is quite up to date and consistent with distribution and dynamics of mangroves, and it's better. I think temporal and spatial details can be obtained from remote sensing and other means. So this provides also an unbiased account of the status of trends in mangroves that we can get from various regions. So this also helped us to take decision at the policy and also at the local level. Next one, please. So, as you know, mangrove fulfill many extremely important productive and protective as well as social functions. Yet increased population pressures have really reduced the area, and lack of awareness have led to the conversion of mangroves to other areas. One of the important thing I found interesting is there is a study in Brasilia that finds the association of various microbes help monitor and conservation of rehabilitation of mangroves. One of the things the MS Swaminathan Research Foundation scientists found that there are many, if you use the the water from the mangroves to cultivation of rice, and there could be a reduction of methane from these areas, so that this could be one of the important issues of today's concern about climate change. So because rice fields are always expected to emit methane, but if you make it little salty, wherever there is a possibility, it is possible to reduce the emission of methane from these areas. In fact, recent study, Dr. Ram Subramaniam may tell you about this in his lecture today, that we have conducted as MS Swaminathan Foundation the methane emissions at different places, and we find that methane emissions are far lesser than expected to be. So this one good thing about our study, which talks about methane emissions could be reduced in combination with water in the rice fields as well. This is something that we have to experiment with. Next slide, please. Yeah, the future of mangrove conservation is primarily, I think it is only about 36% of mangroves in the world are legally protected, and conservation can enhance the area and mangroves, and it can also achieve the Aichi target 11. And today's conservation of mangroves can reduce carbon emissions. Current carbon emission because of mangroves is around 317 million tons per year. That is equivalent of carbon. And if conservation is to be made in these areas, we can reduce this emission from the coastal region, particular mangroves. And what we found is mangrove restoration has been successful, and which should be priority in national policies. No scientific understanding of impact of climate change has been particularly made because of sea level rise. We always talk about sea level rise, but we don't know what happens to the mangroves, particularly their diversity, their extent, and so on and so forth. I think we need to make efforts to do that, and the diverse views also need to be taken for the consolidation of mangroves in its conservation, and also in the current context of climate change and how to reduce carbon emissions because of inundation. So I think I will stop at this, and if there are any questions that I would like to take. Primarily, this lecture I wanted to give because there is largely spatial distribution of mangroves has been studied very local levels, but not at the very global and regional levels. So I thought I'll make this presentation and keep abreast with various people who are looking at it. And many other issues, we venture into the mangrove conservation issues, including carbon emission and so on and so forth. Thank you so much for patient listening, and thank you, Ravi, for facilitating this.
Thank you, Murali, and it's a really very thought-provoking presentation, looking mangrove conservation and management from global to local level. And it's a very loaded presentation with very good information. And I think many would have, observed in his presentation, Murali has very nicely spoken about the mangrove dynamics vis-a-vis sediment supply in relation to continental drift to sea level rise using palynological studies, which is really, a mix of things that, policymakers should look at. He has used examples like Naipa and Rhizophora avicennia. And also he has clearly mentioned about the drivers of mangrove loss from global to local level, giving very good, slides with information which will be useful to the students and researchers. Because we have to graduate from restoration to more management, because for the past 30 years, I could say, as in the field, that we have achieved to considerable extent that we can pat ourselves. And he has also spoken about the loss and change in mangrove extent due to the contributions of both national and international NGOs and government organizations in restoring mangroves that paid dividends already to the local communities. And also it's a very important, observation he has got from the, Brazil, that microbes help in monitoring and conserving. That's very, very, very useful for the mangrove ecosystems. And he has used remote sensing in estimating mangroves, which makes actually convincing the policymakers easier. Because it is all, if we want to take policy level decisions, unless we convince policymakers And it is not that easy to convince the policymakers unless we have clear-cut data using the remote sensing. And he has also given a very good roadmap for future conservation of mangroves. I sincerely thank Murali for his excellent presentation. And if my co-chairperson, Dr. Pandurangan, has anything else to add, otherwise I will invite Dr. Mandal. Dr. Pandu?
Yeah, it's very nice presentation, Dr. Murali.
Thank you,
Yeah,
sir.
it's already our chairman has pointed out. It's really useful, and we have to now go for graduate. We are already conserved. Now we have to make a definite policy to continue this program. Thank you very much, and we go for next presentation. Thank you.
I now invite Dr. Rabindranath Mandal. I would like to, kind of introduce Dr. Mandal. Dr. Mandal is working as a principal scientist in the discipline of economic botany and plant genetic resources at the Regional Research Station ICAR, Central Institute of Freshwater Aquaculture, Kolkata. Dr. Mandal has received Young Scientist Award for his outstanding work on mangrove ecology and biodiversity in 2001 from the Indian Science of Environmental Program. And it is, very commendable to see that, Dr. Mandal has published more than 100 scientific articles, including research papers, review papers, book chapters, and popular and technical papers in the referred journals. I know how difficult it is to publish scientific articles, and like Sachin Tendulkar, he has crossed more than 100, because once Professor Swaminathan told us, publish or perish. That is the motto we had when we work with people like Professor Swaminathan. Dr. Mandal has a passion for thinking on mangrove. This is a very good, dimension that will add to mangrove conservation, particularly of Sundarbans. And he visited almost all the known mangrove habitats of east and west coasts of India. That will definitely, we can see in his presentation. I now invite Dr. Mandal to make his presentation on mangrove vegetative dynamics vis-a-vis mangrove diversity in the ecological perspective. Please, Dr. Mandal.
Yes.
The floor is yours.
Yeah. Namaskar, sir. Share screen, no?
শেয়ার ওইটা কি
হ্যাঁ ওইটা হ্যাঁ
শেয়ার এটা
sir hello
Yes,
I am
please,
audible
go ahead.
I am audible, sir.
Yeah, you are audible.
You are audible and slide is okay. Good.
Okay. So
20 minutes, please.
yeah I understand. Namaskar. It is a good evening. Honorable chairpersons, co-chairpersons, ladies and gentlemen. So today my topic is mangrove vegetative dynamics vis-a-vis mangrove diversity in the ecological perspective. Before coming to my lecture, I am to remember my late Dr. K.R. Noskar, my teacher, my mentor, and my father figure. Today, if I am able to speak about mangroves, it is because of his blessings, and his understanding with me. So coming to my topic, mangrove vegetative dynamics vis-a-vis mangrove diversity in the ecological perspective. Here you see 3 points are there: mangrove vegetation, then mangrove diversity, then ecological perspective, which I mentioned about ecological environment or environmental factor. 3 points are there. So before going to the topic, I must include what is mangrove. So you see, mangrove are defined as the plant communities comprising mostly trees, then shrub, then palm, then fern, and also we have to add one more community, that is a grass. So you see, when we are talking about mangroves, it must comprise, this is the 5 communities. But where mangrove grow? Mangrove grow in the intertidal sheltered coastal areas. What does it mean? It means that the area fall between the high tidal zone and the low tidal zone. Then it is called intertidal zone. Mostly mangroves, true mangroves, growing in such a interesting or highly fragile zone. Now question is that sheltered way, now all these zones are sheltered and protected but not fragile continuously. So now coming to the mangrove vegetative dynamics, we must include three important functional elements. One is mangrove environment, another is mangrove ecosystem, another is mangroves or vegetation. So you see mangroves environment one side, another side mangroves, both constitute mangrove ecosystem. That means what type of mangrove ecosystem will get or will exist, that is determined by the mangrove environment and then mangrove vegetation. So both will consist or both will function to have a mangrove ecosystem. So coming to the mangrove environment, this is very important. You know all mangroves are going in such a habitat condition which continuously facing a destructive environmental factors. Which are those? You see upper side storm. That means mangrove environment every time within a year 2 or 3 times a cyclonic storm, devastating storm which can wipe out total mangrove vegetation. So now second you see tsunami. Just you see one is aerial cyclone, that is a storm. Another you see it is the sea level surges, tsunami, devastating. It can wipe out total mangroves. You see here tidal surges. Tidal surges means mangrove vegetation continuously facing the tidal surges, and anytime anything can happen for mangrove vegetation. You see another land erosion. When tidal surges are there, you can find mangrove habitat continuously have a land erosion. A chunk of land is getting eroded continuously, and you see when one side of bank is getting land erosion, just opposite side you can find a land acquisition. That means new siltation of land is coming up and another new pattern of plant communities is existing or growing up. And you can find salt encrusted zone. You see continuously when evaporation is there, a large scale mangrove zone you can find is covering with salt encrusted. That means water is evaporated and the land is covered with salt encrusted, which is very difficult for mangroves to cope up with. Now tidal ingression. If you go mangrove area, you can find a tidal ingression during full monsoon or full moon or new moon time. A land area, a large scale land area can become flooded. That means it is depends on the tidal range which ingress or travel inward the land. Then tidal flooding. Every time, every day, twice a day, there is a tidal flooding, tidal surges. When it happens, total mangrove area comes under a flooding or deluged. Then tidal duration. You can find when a long distance have a tidal less time, then sea area having a very more duration time. So I am discussing all those things because environmental factors which I am mentioning, it is the determining factors, driving factors. They will determine what type of mangroves will exist in what habitats. Now coming to the mangrove ecosystem, you see why I am telling mangrove is dynamics. If you compare the tropical rainforest, you can find the vegetation, plant vegetation, years after years, you can find same vegetation. But you go the mangrove ecosystem, you cannot find. It cannot happen because of environmental mangrove environment, mangrove vegetation, and another important factor, mangrove diversity. And it changes very frequently with time and space. You see two important factors. This is a time. That means with time, what mangrove vegetation today you are seeing, you cannot find after 10 years. And space means the in which area, in a given area, if you find the mangrove vegetation, and after 10 years, you cannot find same type of vegetation, same type of mangrove diversity is existing in that space. So with time and space, because of environmental factors, mangrove vegetation is changing. That is why it is dynamic. So mangrove ecosystem, it is depends on the three important factors: mangrove environment, mangrove vegetation, and mangrove diversity. So coming to the next point, environmental factors and mangrove dynamics. You see, I am here mentioning 4 environmental settings. Setting 1, you see, setting 1, here you can say tidal height is the main driver. This is the determining factor, and tidal duration and salinity, that is the minor factor. So in such condition, when such condition exists, you see, you can find a one type of vegetation or different type of mangroves which can withstand in such a tidal height condition, and they can develop the steel root that is able to cope up with such an environmental condition. You see setting B, here you can find high salinity anoxia. That means salinity is more, oxygen is less. In such condition, tidal ingression and duration is very less. It is a minor factor. You can find some plant species, they develop the pneumatophore because of to overcome, to withstand in low oxygen area, and this pneumatophore can inhale oxygen and they can survive there for the total vegetation can survive there. You see here setting C. So here you can find land accretion, new siltation is there. That means this environmental pattern is that the new siltation is there, so land is very losing. So in such case, grass vegetation is coming as a pioneer. So after that, other species of mangrove species are coming into successional pattern. So here you see setting D, tidal ingression is very strong and along with anoxia, and salinity tidal thrust is very less or minor effect. So in such case, plant develop a fruit which can be able to germinate in such condition, because they cannot fall. Once they fall, they cannot germinate here. While attached with mother plant, so they can germinate, and after that, when they are able to withstand a high salinity condition, they can fall and they develop a saplings. So now I am coming to the next point. You see, mangrove vegetation succession, biodiversity changing, process of land information and degradation. First, we have to clear what is vegetation, what is diversity. Just I am giving one example. If you see one metro city or any city, there is a transport system. It is a very common term, transport system. That means it carry goods, it carry humans, it carries so many things. But if you see transport system, you can find varieties of transport. That is a metro rail, that is a local train, this is a auto, this is a bus, this is a cycle, so many things are there. That is the diversity. But one term is there, this is the transport system. Here you see three process I am here mentioning. One is process of land formation and degradation. You find land acquisition is there, followed by mudflat land, then mudflat consolidated land, then consolidated land, then consolidated stable land, then stable land, then climax. So this is the process of formation of land which occurs in mangrove area, mangrove habitat. So in according with this land process, there is monotypic stand vegetation is there. Here you see consolidated stable land. That means a large vegetation is there, but you can find varieties of mangroves. Here you see climax condition, stable land. Already here land is very stable, it is getting eroded, and you can find one type of vegetation. That means everywhere you can find the vegetation. Vegetative succession is there, but you can find the different types of diversity. That means vegetation here in mangrove zone, you can find a very dynamic system. It is changing continuously with time and space, not that it is static. And in accordance with the vegetative succession, you can find a various diversity. So when the land reaches the climax condition, then comes the shocking land erosion is there. Land is eroded, total vegetation may collapse. So this type of situation you can find the mangrove area. This is the beauty of the mangrove estuary and mangrove vegetation and its diversity. You cannot find such type of forest or vegetational pattern in tropical rainforest anywhere in the world. You can find this dynamic system in the mangrove area. So coming to the next point, mangrove propagules. What does it? Suppose if any area if area collapse due to mangrove dynamics, due to land erosion, then you can assure that same type of vegetation will occur. It depends on what type of mangrove propagules are available there. And if mangrove propagules are there, you cannot assure they are able to grow there. It depends on several factors: water current, salinity, tidal flow, land bed, competition for nutrients. So you can find propagules, mangrove propagules are available, but not that each and every propagules or same species will grow there. It depends on the various environmental factors. These are the main driver which will determine what mangrove propagules will grow there and withstand there and cope up with this harsh environmental condition. Now coming how to new succession, you see here I am showing three important environmental factors: tidal height, tidal duration, and salinity. These three important environmental factors will determine which type of mangrove exists in which condition. You see land accretion is there, one grass species is growing. Here you see Abyssinia seedlings is develops. Here you see Bruguiera seedlings develops. Here you see the tidal thrust is there, Rhizophora mucronata is there. So all these factors means or indicate or manifest the dynamism of mangrove vegetation. So now you see I am showing one case study of Sundarban, that is the transboundary Sundarban covering both India and Bangladesh. You can find from west to east there is a salinity gradient. From west salinity is high, when towards east salinity is gradually becoming very weak. You see first new land formation is there through siltation. You can find blue-green algae come up, followed by green algae. Then you find here Potaresia coarctata towards west side. That means Potaresia coarctata are able to withstand more salinity. But when you are going towards east, you can find Nipa fruticans, which require freshwater condition. But when you are going towards complete east, you can find Phragmites carca. This is a species which cannot tolerate salt. So this is the condition based on the salinity ingredient, a salinity gradient, you can find different type of vegetation. This is the vegetative dynamics. You cannot find same species everywhere, and that is the salinity which can determine which species grow which species grow where. Abyssinia, you see, then Abyssinia you can find much salted area, Sonaracea face loving plant. So then followed by Rhizophora, Bruguiera, Xylocarpus, Cereops, Agiceros, Azaletis, Lumnigera. When land is more consolidated towards stable, you can find such a mangrove area, such a mangrove vegetation. But here, when land is very much stable, you can find Exoperia species. That means it can grow a cosmopolitan habitat with a various range of salinity. But you cannot find Heritaria. Heritaria is a very freshwater loving plant. So these Heritaria you can find mostly in Sundarban, Bangladesh zone. Then when land reaching climax, you can find phoenix, mangrove associate and back mangles. Then erosion start. This is the common phenomena occurring in the Sundarban, transboundary Sundarban, and we have studied, and this is our observation that based on the salinity gradient, the vegetation is changing according with the mangrove diversity. Now you see lost resources. You see, if we cannot protect the Sundarban, this adversity may happen. You see the land erosion is there. Here you see salt encrusted, only some Swedia species is growing, but still there is a hope for life. You see, still people are residing there, people are going for collection of resources for their livelihood. You see lady collecting the firewall from the mangroves. There is a variety of age groups. People are there to collect their resources for their livelihood, to eke out a daily meal. For these, they are taking the risks, going to the forest and collecting the resources. But at the end, I put some suggestions. So what actually we should do, suggestions to ponder. Actually, it is the environment to determine the condition to which mangroves exist. Already I have talked about more regarding this matter. So follow the natural conditions to which specific mangroves are suitably befitted, plantation to be undertaken accordingly. Otherwise, adverse situation occurs to devastate mangrove vegetation, because you know mangroves grow and tolerate a specific salinity. So based on that, you must have a plantation according their habit and their nature and the habitat condition. Specific mangroves require certain condition to grow, else its growth is affected. Surely, a place needs to be developed as a refuge so that replaced mangroves may have chance to regenerate. This is the important factor. You see, if everywhere, if a single species dominate in anywhere, any mangrove vegetation, you must clear a zone, you must have a zone where you make a refuge where other mangroves can develop to exist. Next, a number of ecological parks to be established to accommodate for threatened flora to survive. You see, Dr. Noskar, a brilliant scientist who has developed an ecological park in mangroves where different threatened species are accommodated for their survival. Otherwise, in the condition of climate change and so many adverse conditions and anthropogenic pressure, there are many rare species may vanish with time passing. Honest expertise is essential to protect mangroves, not to the hands of so-called planners without knowledge of mangroves adaptation. You see, so many people are engaged in mangrove plantation, mangrove work, but I have doubt they have a little knowledge about the mangrove adaptation, mangrove behavior, mangrove habit, where to grow. So now what happened when the plantation is taking place, after that they are eroded, collapse, and this is the situation happening in our country, in our state. So now all these information I have compiled and I am giving to discuss with you. That is the ecology and biodiversity of Indian mangroves, K.R. Noskar and R.N. Mondal. That is the one Bengali book, Sundarban. Another book, Mangroves for Building Resiliency to Climate Change. This is a field manual, R.N. Mondal and R. Borsier, CPS, Apple Academic Press, USA. So let's protect mangroves. Thank you very much. I thank all the audience for their patient sharing. Namaskar. Good evening.
Thank you, Dr. Mondal. It's a very practical presentation. Dr. Mondal, with his field level experience, he has nicely made his presentation in the content of mangrove ecosystems, its functions, and he touched upon the natural disasters and mangrove erosion and accession, causes for mangrove degradation, and also tidal actions in relation to lunar cycle that needs to be considered when undertaking any restoration activity. Components of a mangrove diversity, vegetation, and emissions in relation to temporal and spatial factors. That's very nicely touched upon. And mangrove vegetation range in relation to tidal duration and salinity, which is one of the factors that needs to be considered. And vegetation succession and process of land formation and degradation, and how it will be quite useful while taking up any further restoration activities. And he concluded with very practical suggestions to consider for mangrove conservation, and also his publications, particularly in local language, because the local people are the key stakeholders, and unless they are involved and unless their contributions are published in their own language, any work will not reach them, and it will not be useful, and it cannot be replicated elsewhere in the places where the same language is used. Thank you for your wonderful presentation, Dr. Mandal.
Thank you,
And
sir.
I request co-chairperson, Dr. Panduragan, to add if he has any comments to make, please.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Ravi. Dr. Mandal has actually practically he has put a lot of effort in understanding the structure and dynamics of the mangroves in Sundarbans.
Thank you, sir. Thank
He
you.
has finally find out in a very key contribution is ultimately the shape and the mangrove vegetation is by the mangrove environment, and it's responsible for its diversity. It's a quite good work. Please continue, sir, your work, and let us build a resilience due to the climate change in the future. Okay, thank
Surely,
you.
sir. Surely. Yes.
Please go ahead.
Thank you very much.
Yes. If any question is there, so I am ready to answer.
Yeah.
If
Hello.
there are any questions, you can please post it, and
Sure.
we will take at the end, please.
Okay. Okay.
That's
Sure.
better.
Sure. Okay.
And,
This is better.
Right now, there
because-
is no question.
Okay. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Mandal.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Ravi, please go ahead.
Yeah. With your permission, I will go ahead and invite Dr. R. Ramasubramanian. And it is introducing Dr. Ramasubramanian is introducing myself, because we have been associated in our mangrove work for more than 35 years, I can say, since our days in Bharatiyar University. Dr. Ramasubramanian has been very instrumental in continuously working in the mangrove project since 1996 in the Swaminathan Foundation. And he has very good knowledge on vegetation dynamics, restoration, climate change, carbon sequestration in relation to mangrove conservation and management, and then, taking at policy level. Dr. Ramasubramanian has visited many countries in South and Southeast Asian region, and he is one of the graduates of coastal management from Netherlands International Agricultural Center, where his training has made me much more refined in applying the principles of management. And Dr. Ramasubramanian has published a lot of papers and books which are referred as reference manual, and also used by Ministry of Environment and Forest as a tool guide for restoration along both east and west coast of India. Like Dr. Mandal, Dr. Ramasubramanian has worked all along from Sundarbans to Gujarat, and he is one of the eminent persons now, I can say, of national and international reputation in mangrove conservation and management. And with this introduction, I request Dr. Ramasubramanian to make his presentation on participatory mangrove conservation and management in Andhra Pradesh, in which he has been working for more than 30 years. Ramasubramanian.
Yeah. Thank you very much for your nice introduction. Hope I am audible.
Yeah, you are audible.
Okay. Thank you. Um, First of all, I thank the organizers, Dr. Sen and his team, for providing this opportunity, and respected chair and co-chair and my fellow panelists. I would like to give an overall MSSR of experience in participatory mangrove conservation and management in Andhra Pradesh. Just a minute, I will share.
Sure.
Just a minute.
Sure.
Hope my screen is visible.
Yes.
Yeah. So mangroves is one of the important coastal ecosystems which provide both livelihood security as well as ecological security to the coastal community. We have India has a coastline of about 7,500 kilometers, including the Andaman, Nicobar, and Lakshadweep Islands. We are having around 25 crore people living along the coast who are all depending on the natural resources. The coastal area is diverse and very rich in ecosystems, and they are highly productive. Because of this, we have a large population of people living along the coast. Major cities wherever in the world, they are all located in the coast. So, however, these coastal areas are highly vulnerable to disasters as well as sea level rise. And in Andhra Pradesh, both Krishna and Godavari deltas are highly vulnerable to sea level rise and other disasters. We have nearly 70 lakh people living along the coast, mainly farming and fishers, who are all facing the climate change as well as natural disaster vulnerability. And our coast, both east and west coast, are experiencing at least 9 cyclones per year, including all depressions, cyclones, and super cyclones. And the SADR has ranked our Indian coast, as highly vulnerable. And the score between 0 and 10, our coast ranked 9, so highly vulnerable coast. Then the disasters as well as sea level rise, erosion, they are all happening very rampant because of less freshwater flow. Because of that, sediments are not being transported, and land formation is very less. So our mangrove ecosystems are under constant threat. For that, conservation of coastal resources is very much important, as the local community is depending on the coastal ecosystems for their livelihood. So this is how the local community, especially the poor artisanal fishermen, depend on the mangrove ecosystem. In the mangroves, there are about 75 ecosystem services which are being used by the local community. If you see the root system, it is a maze. So due to these network, these roots can withstand the super cyclones, that is more than 250 kilometers of wind speed, as well as it protect the coast from the erosion during storm surges. Apart from that, it provides a lot of food to the juvenile fishes, as well as it acts as a shelter for the juveniles from predation. So mangrove litter is a highly productive ecosystem, as I already told. Litter actually provides a lot of detritus to the marine animals, especially the juvenile shrimp and crab. So coastal ecosystems, including mangroves, are potential carbon sequesters. Dr. Murali has already pointed out the mangroves has very great potential. Actually, the mangrove plants has the ability to sequester more than 4 times more carbon than the other terrestrial plants. So mangroves nearly sink more than 218 teragrams of carbon per year globally. So 1 teragram is equal to 10 to the power of 12 grams. So these coastal ecosystems are sequester a lot of carbon below their ground. So once if these plants are degraded, these buried carbon will emit. So emission will be very high if degradation is there. So we have been working, Dr. Murali told about the greenhouse gas emission project from Pichavaram. We are continuously monitoring the emissions, especially carbon dioxide and methane. Pichavaram and Sundarban mangroves were compared here. Pichavaram mangroves absorb nearly 183 to 193 grams carbon per meter per year, while the Sundarbans it's about 250 grams carbon. But if you see Everglades mangroves in the US, where it is absorbing more than a kilo carbon per meter square per year. So our mangroves are very less in carbon sequestration potential. If you see the mangrove forest of Pichavaram, it acts as a modest sink because it is sequestering very less. But if you see the methane emission, that is highly seasonal. During wet season, methane emission is there, and in summer, methane emission is not there. So coming to mangroves of Andhra Pradesh, we have mangroves from Srikakulam to Pulicat Lake in south of Andhra. And we have two major estuaries, one is Krishna and other one is Godavari. These two estuaries contribute nearly 582 square kilometers of mangroves, in which Godavari is about 332 square kilometers and Krishna is about 250 square kilometers. Species we have around 37 mangrove species, including the associates, in which nearly half are true mangroves and other 50% are mangrove associates. We have some rare species. In Krishna, we have Sirius stagal, Xyrococcus granatum, and Aegialitis. These are all located in very specific locations, especially in Nachigunda Reserve Forest. We have Sirius stagal and Xylococcus. Aegiceras, and in Xylococcus we are having in Lankavanidipara. So these are all highly localized in specific locations. And coming to Godavari mangroves, we have three mangrove species which are rare. One is Scyphiphora hydrophalacia, the other one is Phaneretia alba, and third one is Xylococcus malacensis, in which Scyphiphora hydrophalacia is unable to regenerate through seeds. So because of that, the population of this plant is very less, and also it is located in a small reserve forest where a lot of pressure is there. So what we have done is we have tried tissue culture as well as vegetative propagation. We could succeed through air layering. Even stem cuttings could not be successful. So we have initiated our work in 1996 in Godavari and Krishna wetlands, and these are the images. You can see the degraded patches in 1996, and in Krishna it is almost a lot of areas are degraded. So what we assess the cause. One of the causes we identify is the co-felling, which both Krishna as well as Godavari mangrove wetlands were felled by the forest department on a rotation basis. So because of elevation in the topography and other edaphic factors, some of the areas were not regenerated. So apart from that, the local community, depending on the mangroves for fuelwood and other timber requirements. In both the estuaries, there are semi-domesticated animals, mainly buffaloes and cows. They actually graze mangroves, and that is also a cause for degradation. And if you see changes in the land use in Andhra Pradesh, it's a capital of aquaculture in India, and Godavari wetland, if you see, large areas of mangroves were converted in early 1990s for aquaculture. Then changes in the topography, then reduction in freshwater flow, they are also causing some of the damages to mangroves. And cyclones, we had 1977 cyclone in Krishna, where large areas of sand casting has happened. Because of that, some of the mangroves were lost, and climate change it is occurring in Tamil Nadu and other parts of world, but in Andhra Pradesh we are not experiencing much, but in due course we will be experiencing climate change also. So this is how the local community is depending on the mangroves for their needs. Apart from that, mangroves were converted for other land uses like aquaculture, salt pan, industries, then agriculture. So you can see the changes 1986 and 2001. If you see the mangroves were lost here due to aquaculture. So in Krishna also you can see in 1986 there are beautiful mangroves here. They are all converted for aquaculture. So mangroves also have, even though mangroves have resilience to disasters, mangroves also undergo changes due to the sea level rise and other things. So if as sea level rise more than a meter, then permanent inundation will occur, and because of that, some of the species will be lost. Then the sea level rise will actually enhance the sea level coastal erosion, thereby some of the mangrove wetlands in Sundarbans were lost. Then, however, the mangroves have the ability to cope with the sea level rise if sediment supply from the rivers are continuously coming. You can see the vertical acceleration rate can be 0.7 millimeter to 20.8 millimeter per year if sediment supply is there. If sea level rise is there, mangroves try to relocate towards the landward side. So if land is there, mangroves will occupy some of the salt marsh areas and other areas. But in India, we don't have much area left beyond the reserve forest boundaries. So this is about the sea level rise. If you see the Indian coast, Visakhapatnam is about 1.09 millimeters per year. That is in 2007. If you see in Diamond Harbour in Calcutta, West Bengal, it is more than 5 millimeters. So because of that, a lot of islands were lost. So this is how erosion. This is in East Godavari district, where near Kakinada Bay, large scale erosion is happening. But mangroves are protecting these villages nearby. So erosion is not that much. If you compare Uppada and this place, Uppada has eroded more than 4 kilometers inside. So cyclones, as I already told, 1977 we had a Divasima cyclone in Krishna mangroves, where it has changed the topography. Because of that, a lot of areas were degraded. And this in the cyclone Nargis in Myanmar has reduced more than 38,000 hectares. And recently Gaja in Muthupet in 2018 November we had a cyclone. A lot of damages happened. So this is a picture of Muthupet mangroves. You can see the yellow circles where this image, the top image is before cyclone, and this one is after cyclone. You can see the changes. Canopy as well as a lot of mangroves were uprooted here. So temperature, if temperature continuously increase, we will be experiencing more than 40 degrees centigrade, and the higher temperatures will reduce the photosynthetic rate because of stomatal closure. Then because of enhanced evaporation, the photosynthetic rate will be going down. The salinity levels will be very high, and we will be losing freshwater species. Already Sundarbans, Sundari trees we are losing, and in Tamil Nadu, earlier reports in Muthupet shown there were Sonaraceae and other freshwater species, but they are all extinct. Then shoot dieback disease also we are experiencing in Tamil Nadu. So this is the shoot dieback disease in Tamil Nadu in 2017 because of less freshwater flow as well as increase in temperature has affected. This has happened in Australia. You can see the changes. Complete mangrove has been lost, more than 7,400 hectares. Then to increase the mangrove cover, MS Swaminathan Research Foundation as well as the State Forest Department started mangrove development, that is restoration of degraded mangroves involving the local community. So we formed village level institutions and we built their capacity to restore the degraded mangroves. We provided a lot of support to grow mangrove nursery, and then we trained them in digging canals and planting mangrove saplings and monitoring them. So this is how a degraded area looked like, and we dug canals like this to facilitate tidal water flow. Actually, most of the areas, degraded areas in Andhra Pradesh are elevated, and the tidal flushing is not there. Because of that, the soil salinity has gone up, and it has the mangroves become degraded. So we dug canals like this, and we planted mangroves. So we established nurseries. Then this is a Scyphifera hydrophila. It's a very rare plant in East Godavari, and that is Godavari mangrove plant. We have propagated this through vegetative propagation. So these are the mangrove restoration protocols where we dug canals for tidal flushing. We planted nursery raised saplings, and these are the canals. You can see the aerial photography in Krishna district. So this is the mangrove cover. Actually, Forest Survey of India is estimating forest cover in India every 2 years. So they have data from 1987 to 2019. If you see the Andhra data, 1987 we have nearly 500 square kilometers of mangroves, but it has come down to 320 in 2001, and now it has come to 4,005. But this data also has some problem, but this is the official record of FSI. So Dr. Murali already showed this one. You can see the changes in the degraded area. This area has been completely restored. A lot of geomorphological changes has occurred, erosion as well as accretion, even the lagoon formation, spit and elongation are there. Then Krishna Estuary, this is 1990 and 2018. You can see a lot of improvement of mangroves, both natural as well as canal plantation helped improving the mangrove forest cover. So this is my last slide. So mangroves are very important ecosystems because it provides a lot of ecological as well as a livelihood options to the coastal community. So we have to, in Andhra Pradesh, mangroves are found in both revenue as well as in the forest area. So we have to protect all these forests because there are no more new mangrove areas we can add in Andhra. So we have to enforce acts, Wildlife Act and CRZ and all. We have to implement it very stringently so that we can protect some of these important ecosystems. Then eco-sensitive zones, even there a lot of discrepancies are there. In Krishna mangroves, if you see, they have given 2 kilometers of buffer zone, but in East Godavari district, their buffer zone is very less. Then coordination of government departments is very much essential because many actors are involved in the coastal ecosystem. So coordination is very much important, and the continuous monitoring as well as restoring of coastal habitats are very much important to protect the lives and livelihoods. Thank you very much for.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ram Subramaniam, for a very practical presentation. And this is a different presentation from the other two presentations in the sense how participatory approaches have been used with a case study from Andhra Pradesh. And Dr. Ram Subramaniam has emphasized more on the ecological and livelihood security of the mangroves, but how vulnerable the coasts are given the fragile nature of the coast that has come out beautifully in his presentation. And he also dealt upon the frequency of cyclones, including super cyclones, which has devastated particularly Myanmar, Odisha, and Krishna regions in Andhra Pradesh. And also, technical reasons like how reduced freshwater flow has affected the mangrove vegetation in almost all the ecosystems, but particularly in East Coast. And how important the mangrove ecosystems are as they act as breeding and feeding grounds, and how distribution of mangroves are important as they are potential carbon sequestration agents. And degradation and carbon emissions he spoke about. And he has nicely taken the case study of Andhra Pradesh, where with a multi-stakeholder approach, in which I was also involved, with both governments. That is the fundamental trump card of our effort was taking forestry department and other stakeholders completely into confidence. That has paved high dividends, and which has been till now. Dr. Ramasubramaniam, holding the flag of MSSRF, is continuing the work all along the East Coast. And also, he spoke upon the extent and species composition and how rare and endangered species are there in Andhra Pradesh and both Godavari and Krishna, because unless we know the diversity and the rarity of the species, it will be very difficult to undertake any conservation activity. He also very nicely spoke about the drivers and causes for degradation, including climate change, because nowadays climate change is completely taken a different view, but that is also one of the causes and drivers of degradation, which he has clubbed very nicely. And the trends in sea level rise on mangrove erosion and impact of cyclones on mangroves and the physiological impacts on mangroves. And he has taken the case study of Andhra Pradesh with community participated mangrove restoration and the change in mangrove cover. And finally, he has concluded nicely with the management options. And he has set the basic point of assessing the mangrove status to plan further. Unless you know what is there, it is very difficult to plan. And also, as we all know, the now restoration efforts have paid dividends for almost many parts in India, with the active contribution of Ministry of Environment and Forests and Climate Change. And now, apart from Forestry Department, wherever there are mangroves in under revenue departments or private areas, particularly I came to know when I was discussing with forest officials in Kerala, many areas of private areas are under mangroves, and which one of the district collectors, he has completely changed that situation, and he has brought those areas into revenue. That is also very important. And finally, he made the very important point of how, with coordination of various departments, we can go ahead. Thank you, Dr. Ramsabhu, for your nice presentation. And I request co-chair Dr. Pandurangan to add to this presentation.
Yeah, Dr. Ravi, I know that his presentation is actually, he has done justification actually about how to restore the participatory approach. And I thank you, Dr. Subramaniam, but we are already 20 minutes behind the schedule. So I just quickly introduce the next speaker, Dr. Ravi Shankar.
Okay.
And he is my colleague right from college days, actually. After finishing his MSc, and he joined in Botanical Survey of India as a researcher. and worked for his PhD program in Ethno Botany of Andhra Pradesh, actually Eastern Ghats. And after attaining his PhD, he served as a scientist in MS Swaminathan Research Foundation for more than a decade. At the time, he was actively involved with, I think, the next previous speaker, restoring the mangroves, in particularly in Kakinada and Krishna river basins. And that time, his career was so improved, and he is well known about the mangrove specialist, and then moved to the International Union, actually many of the conservation agencies, as an expert, and served in Fiji and Maldives and so on. And in fact, he is well known among the conservation circles right now, and in fact there is no need for any introduction, but still as a customary I am introducing. And he is now right now with FOA as a consultant for international forestry and biodiversity specialist. And now I request Dr. Ravi Shankar to speak on the policy matters, actually. That is very important. That is policy for integrated management for ecological sustenance and coastal and mangrove ecosystems in India. So that now I request Dr. Ravi Shankar, please stick on to 20 minutes time so that we
Yeah.
adjust it. Thank you very much. Please go ahead.
Yeah, only thing is I am unable to, share this. They say your browser is preventing access to your share screen. I don't know what to do.
First, you open it and minimize. Then go for share screen, and there will be a windows.
Yeah, I am doing that, but when I click on the share screen, it says your browser is preventing. Anybody can help me?
Same thing happened to me as well, Ravi. If your laptop is
Okay,
Mac,
if
I
you send to me, I can share.
Yeah, sure, but
Or else,
Whether somebody is there from webinar side?
no, he can send it to me through mail and I can open and I can share.
Yeah, I can also send it. I am Dr. Pandurangan. I will forward it.
Yeah.
Can I send to your official site?
Yes, sir. If you can send it to our official email ID, then we'll download it and share.
yes, I have sent it.
Yes.
You got it, Dr. Mandal?
Yeah.
The presentation load up. Sir, நான் டெஸ்க்டாப்ல ஓபன் பண்ணி வச்சிருக்கேன்.
Yeah.
ஸ்கிரீன் ஷேர் பண்ணுங்க. ஸ்கிரீன் ஷேர் பண்ணுங்க.
எப்படி பண்றது? அது மாதிரி வருது.
பேக் போங்க.
எப்படி பண்றது?
பேக் அங்க போங்க, பேக் பண்ணுங்க.
வரல அது. இங்க டெஸ்க்டாப்ல.
ஸ்கிரீன் ஷேர் போங்க.
இதா.
உங்களுக்கு
அது பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கேன். if it is getting delayed, we will go to the next speaker, then I can make the presentation later.
இல்ல, நீங்க எனக்கு அனுப்பிவிடுங்க, நான் பாக்குறேன்.
Whether next
Okay.
speaker is ready?
அஜந்தா, டாக்டர் அஜந்தா.
Yes, I am ready. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I can hear. May I know her name?
My name is Ajanta De.
அஜந்தா, ராம்சி.
Yeah, Dr. Ajanta De. Yes.
Excuse me, sir.
Okay, shall I share my screen?
Yeah, 1 minute. Dr. Ravi Shankar?
Yeah, Dr. Mandal, can you do it in 1 minute, or should we go? Dr. Mandal? Right, we will go to the next speaker.
Yeah, you can introduce Dr. Ravi Shankar, Dr. De.
Sure. As there is some, online issues, we are going to the next speaker. I now a great pleasure in introducing Ajanta De. Srimati Sri Ajanta De is now acting as Joint Secretary and Program Director of non-profit NGO, Nature, Environment and Wildlife Society. And is a member of Commission on Ecosystem Management, IUCN, and regional coordinator of Living Lakes and Wetlands, South Asia. And interestingly, she is also a faculty for Center for Continuing and Adult Education, Vidyasagar University. And I have great pleasure in inviting Dr. Ajanta De to speak on community governance in forest management, which is key to ensuring long-term protection of forest ecosystems. Please, Dr. Ajanta De.
So can you see the presentation?
Yes, of course, we are able to see your presentation. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. A very good afternoon to all of you. Thank you, Dr. Shane, Chair, Co-Chair, and Dr. R. Subramanian. I know you have been instrumental in giving me the invitation here, as I was told. So thank you again, all panelists. Now, my topic is as community governance in coastal forest management, and unlike the scientific luminaries that I am sharing the panel with, I am a conservation practitioner who has been working on the mangroves in Sundarban, in Bhitorkonika, and also I worked in the Dolvi mangrove region in Maharashtra. So I will share my experiences, and on the Sundarban a case study I wanted to share on it. And as the topic goes, that the coastal forestry, the mangrove dynamics, and transforming coastal zones for sustainable food and income security. We all know that the planet is witnessing devastating coastal resources depletion, and the major driving forces are high rates of population growth in the coastal regions, poverty which is backed with depleting resources, degraded fisheries habitats, etc., large scale and quick profit commercial enterprises which degrade resources, and conflict. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
And conflict with interests of the local people increase. There is also lack of knowledge, especially in mitigating and adapting to climate change and sea level rise, and lack of awareness about the management for resource sustainability among the local people and the policymakers. There's also lack of understanding of the economic contribution of the coastal resources to the society, and lack of serious government follow-up in support and enforcement of the conservation programs, the rules, the regulations, the acts that we have and globally agree to on various bilateral global platforms. So what is needed in this context is a policy, which is the integrated coastal zone management. And among the 15 principles of the integrated coastal zone management as per FAO, the major 5 and 6 of them rest on the common property resources, where the conservation of the common property resources, especially with respect to coastal regions, are very important. Talks about nature-based solutions, public participation, traditional resource management, inclusion of all stakeholders, like many previous speakers have also stressed on this point, as it is a very multidisciplinary, multi-stakeholder kind of management that we always face in such areas, and of course the intergenerational equity. So based on these, out of the 15 principles as per FAO, based on these focus areas, I shall try to deliver my presentation today. I will just take you to a case study in the Madhusudanpur region of Kagdip in the Sundarban Biosphere Reserve. As you can see, the region is just above the Shagor Island, where the mighty river Ganges meets into the delta, meets into the sea to a broad mouth of the Ganges River. And here on the two satellite pictures that you see, it's a Google Earth satellite image. So it's Madhusudanpur in 1995 and Madhusudanpur in 2020, where you can see that you can see the Ghoramara Island, which has been in the newspaper, in the many documents quite a lot because of its erosion due to sea level rise. And you see just beyond that, in 1995 there was no landmass, but in 2020 there is a huge landmass of around 1,800 to 1,000 hectares that has come up in that region. And I would just like to get into the evolution of that particular growth of the landmass, and how the communities, science, governance have been so crucial in having this landmass develop in that region, protecting the life and the livelihood of the people in that region. It is very interesting. In the meantime, I would like to take your attention that in spite of Ghoramara being eroding due to sea level rise, very near to it, this landmass has developed over the years. So whether it's a sea level rise or it's the erosion accretion that constantly grows around this dynamic delta, remains to be more probed, understood, and delved into. So before going into the final results of this gaining landmass, I would like to take you to the typical features of Sundarban, where all the islands, the 102 islands as it is said, that they are all turtle back, and the twice tidal, high tides and low tides we face, and we know that these embankments protect these inhabited islands from this tidal inundation every day twice. When the tidal height at the high tide is higher, the level of the river at the high tide is higher than the level of the village. So we say that this embankment, 3,600 kilometer long embankment, it protects the life and livelihood of the villages from saline tidal waters, and are the lifeline for the people of Sundarban. And often these, as you've seen this on the right hand of the picture, you can see the bricks there. The government, PWD, the irrigation department often uses bricks to maintain these dikes. But we see what happens. The tide just erodes away everything. And we see such type of accreting mud embankments along these embankments, and where sometimes, as Dr. Mondal had said, various stages of succession of vegetation, mangrove vegetation could be seen. And we take it into account when we go for any afforestation activities. So these are the typical areas we see, and whenever we go for any mangrove afforestation program, it's the land use land cover maps we need to identify to have the erosion and the accretion pattern. We need to have the water salinity, soil salinity, the pH in the various seasons to understand the suitability of the species, and the site selection is also very crucial for such type of afforestation. And after that, the mangrove species selection strategy is the most crucial. And in this case, we depend on the important value index, the slope and the tidal inundation, the soil character, the clay, and all the data we get into the soil triangle and find the silty, sandy, clay nature of it, the Potracia growth, which indicates the stability and the first stage of the succession of the mangroves, the salinity profile, of course, and it has to be necessary selection of the mixed species, because that's how the Sundarban mangrove forest diversity and dynamicity exist. So restoration in a multi-species environment is the key factor. And then the most important is beyond science and the parameters, the ecological parameters that we take into account for such type of activity. It is the mobilization of the local communities, because I had been working in Sundarban for quite a long time, and previously we were not into mangrove restoration, renaturation. We were into wildlife research here and there, doing some small research projects, but we kept on seeing that there were a lot of agencies doing this mangrove restoration year and year after, but the mortality was very high. And we figured out that in spite of all the science that we put into, if the local communities are not involved, do not take the ownership, it is very, very difficult to have a long-term sustenance of whatever has been done. So we tried to create different slogans, that it is not just plantation, afforestation, but you have to grow a forest. And we ensured their participation in every implementing process. We established the nurseries. We had made it them in jute bags, pot filling, seed collection, rowing, raising saplings, caring. And we all know that mangrove nurseries need a lot of care. So splashing with saline waters, then plantation of seeds, saplings, all these are taken into care with the women working there, who stays very closely and takes part in these programs. We buy from them, we engage them in plantation and monitoring, because we felt that their involvement is key to long-term sustenance. And you can see all that, the pictures of these collection, jute keeping, this huge nurseries, the beds, and as I said, that they are very key to long-term sustenance of the mangrove protection. And the most important part is this monitoring and surveillance, because many a times we feel that the plantation program ends with the plantation, but it's not just after the plantation. Actually, the challenges begin to establish that plantation. And you can see here the Kakdip women, they dress themselves in green. I just wanted to highlight that this ownership that they had while planting, while doing the monitoring, and you can see this, we have developed a very simple user friendly app where even they assess the azimuth and dbh, d30 even, and they calculate all these, feed them into these apps. And you will be glad to know that after Amphan, our government of West Bengal has gone for a massive mangrove plantation in the area. And we had been asked to advise them on the technical matters. And we have given the panchayats training on how to do this, because it's, as I explained, it's just not plantation, because then you will have only Avicennia species, and that's what we used to have earlier. And we have designed this app, which the MG and Narega program is having with Bishwa Bangla, and News has designed it. So it's a great incentive for us that the policy into the policy frameworks, we have been able to introduce such type of continuous monitoring status that the any plantation program needs to develop, and that MG Narega has already taken it and ebbed it into their design. And due to all these, these green saris and all this storytelling actually is what happens when such type of things grow. that you can see in 1995 and then in 2020. Because I remember when in 2009-10 we started working in Kagdip region, particularly the Ganges was like roaring. The people, they said that we cannot sleep in the night because we feel that 4 times our villages, our houses has been taken away by the river. Something should be done. And then when we started working, there were people who were doing crab collections there, 50 odd people, and they resisted us and even put fire onto one of our the village protection committee members. But we could convince them, the women and all of us, the other villages, we all together could convince them that for 2 to 3 years, please do the crab collection somewhere else. We also identified an area. And then what happened was a history, as you can see, that I will get into the spatial pattern also, how it developed. And now in that particular place, more than 500 crab collectors are collecting the crabs in from that 800 to 850 hectares of mangrove area. So these are all the storytelling of Apurna Dhara, Gopal Mondol, when characters are built larger than life, who take the ownership, they secure their lives and livelihood. Fishing, crab collection ensures continued protection to establish the bioshield, adopting the nature's way. And that is what I, as a conservation practitioner, felt that when people's participation transforms into community governance, this is the result that we have for protection of the forest and forest ecosystems. And this is the result of Amphan. The same Kagdip area where they had planted these mangroves, now you can see that this entire bioshield is protecting this on the right, on the left, the brick dike, and where there is not, on the right, it's the Rangabelia. There was no mangrove shield, and there was saline inundation on the village for at least 15 days, and there was no way out. So common property resources and ways of conservation, what we felt, we did a lot of studies in the area as to about the community perception of the mangrove, of the community perception on the mangroves. And we understood that this Amphan, this intergenerational equity, that their continuity of life and livelihood is what drives them when they dress themselves like a green brigade and says that, and I personally asked them, why do you wear this type of sari? So they said that we like to be known to the village that now we are going to protect the forests. So that sense of ownership is very, very important, is what I felt. And you can see that every month these tours, they submit a mangrove watch report. It's a very simple one page, but we get so much of data from all over the Sundarban in all our 163 plantation sites, whether there is any pest attack on particular trees, whether any encroachments are happening, whether it's a particular case of grazing, and all that, how is the vegetation distribution happening in all the 5 zones. We have separated our plantation areas like Bidda, Matla, Raimongol, Shagor, Shaptamukhani, and we get an idea of and this can be called a citizen science model in the monitoring, and beautiful results. You can see them monitoring, and after 6 months, what is the saplings survival rate, what is the seed, because there is always a combination of seed and saplings in the mangrove plantation forestation activities. So after 1 year, what it is like, how the natural regeneration is happening, what is the project like. In the project, what was planted, it can be clearly demarcated from the lines that are followed. So in this way, a beautiful analysis of the seedlings, saplings, in what ratios we should do and how we should do, we can gather from all these data. And this is that evolutionary history I would like to share, that in 1995, it was 0. In 2010, you can see that there was some land masses coming up from 2000, I would say 6. And then there was some plantation done, and it started, this plantation combined with the protection started helping the land mass to accrete more. And now this entire village which was once sleepless due to the raging Ganges is now having a good night's sleep because this entire mangrove belt is now protecting them. So a nature-based solution in establishing the bioshield, mitigating the sea level rise, and you can see the area accretion that has happened in 2010 2013. So the mangroves acting as a shore engineers is what we get out of these data, and renaturation of mangroves is happening there because protection is resulting in stabilization of the mangrove biomass. And ecosystem management, since I work on the community on Commission on Ecosystems Management, I find that this is the entire model here: the science, the community governance, and the policy. But the science, site selection, species selection, plantation monitoring protocol. Then we have the community governance, where the decision-making processes, financial inclusion are very crucial. And then we have the policy governance framework, eco-sensitive zone, biosphere reserve managements, etc. And this is what I find that always encourages me to work in these very hostile terrain, in this desperate delta, that is people who translate dreams into action, into reality, and creating the transformations that we aspire to see, the changes that we aspire to see. And thank you very much.
Yeah, excellent presentation, Dr. Day. And in fact, your presentation one is important, is the Mangrove Watch Report actually. That is actually is very much useful to understand the causes and the impacts on these restoration of mangrove projects. Yeah, very nice, and it's a practical one. Please go ahead and see that you have already, within 9 years, the mangrove restoration has doubled almost from 300 to 800 hectares. So congratulations. Now we move on to the next presentation. Dr. Ravi Shankar, are you ready?
Yeah. Dr. Ram Subramaniam is helping me. I now request Dr. Ram Subramaniam to project my presentation.
Yeah, please. See that, and have the 20 minutes. We are already half an hour behind the schedule.
Yeah. The pressure is mounting on the remaining speakers.
Yes. Yeah, now it's okay. Fine.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pandurangan, and I am glad to be with our old friends like Murali, Ram Subramaniam. Now my presentation is more on policy for integrated management for ecological sustenance of coastal and mangrove ecosystems in India. Next slide, please. We should look at the coastal facts before we get into the policy options. The oceans cover 70% of the planet's surface area, and marine and coastal environments contain diverse habitats that support an abundance of marine life. Coastal zones account for 20% of the world's land area. Next slide. Yeah, coral reef ecosystems are increasingly being degraded and destroyed worldwide by a variety of human activities and by global warming. And well, currently the global harvests for marine fisheries are at 96.4 million tons per year. And also it is increasing because, we are going health conscious given the omega-3 fatty acids that needs to be taken by the global population, given the hypertension and diabetic situation that has been increasing like anything. And the objective of this conference also at looking at the coastal and mangrove forests, and mangroves extend over 18 billion hectares worldwide, covering a quarter of the world's tropical coastline. This has been clearly dealt by Murali and Ramasubramaniam and Dr. Mundal. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yeah, let us take a look at the mangrove areas all along our coasts in India, from West Bengal to Gujarat. This is the picture taken from our own MSSRF book on mangroves of Andhra Pradesh, and we see this in Odisha and Tamil Nadu books also. The larger the circle, extent of mangroves are greater. Next slide, please. And this is, pristine mangroves of East Godavari district, where I have been living for from 97, and I have been working with colleagues like Ram Subramaniam. I have worked in Swaminathan Foundation implementing the IDRC project, where we have restored more than 1,200 hectares in Odisha and Andhra Pradesh. Next slide, please. And the UN estimates that 20% of the planet's mangroves were lost between 1980 and 2005. And from 2005 to 2020, it is gradually increasing. It is not decreasing, though we have been doing a lot of restoration efforts. There is a scope for further restoration and better protection of mangroves in private lands and revenue lands as well. Mangroves are more threatened by harvesting for timber and charcoal, freshwater diversion, real estate development, conversion and tourism, and shrimp. There is no responsible tourism. That is the issue we face almost all over the world. Shrimp farms and clearing for agriculture, notably oil palm plantations and rice in South and Southeast Asian countries. Next slide, please. We need to look at the goods and services provided by the mangroves and coastal vegetation. If we take mangrove resources, the situation is same anywhere along east and west coast. We have done the rapid rural assessment and participatory rural assessment and baseline survey, so that we can look at the interventions of the project which we have done late in the late 90s and early 2000s for our IDRC and ICF projects. And it is primarily used for firewood, fencing, fodder, and house building. These are the genuine needs of the coastal communities. Unless alternatives are provided, these people will continue to do that. And then saying so many things unnecessary, this will be an unnecessary talk to the community unless as my earlier speaker said, alternative livelihoods needs to be provided to the community, like crab fattening and shrimp farming and all that, in a very eco-friendly way. And our study showed that 40% of families depend on fisheries. But at the same time, alarmingly, fishery resources are going down. Though we are declaring fishing holidays and all that, it is not paying dividend. So we have to look from a very, very holistic approach with a clear strategy and an action plan, an implementable strategy and action plan. We should not be paper tigers, having a policy which will not be implementable, passing a GO which will not be acceptable to the communities will no longer pay dividends, as our inputs into mangrove restoration is increasing day by day. And nearly 5,000 fishermen fish in mangroves annually and 2,000 fishermen in monsoon season. Look at the pressure on fishery resources. Unless the fishery resources are increased, they will catch juveniles, which will affect the fishery population. It is a very cyclic thing. And about 3,400 cattle graze in the mangrove. This is the data in the late 90s. But now it has reduced, given the efforts of both MSSRF and the Forestry Department together, and also the UNDP GEF project, which we concluded before year. Next slide, please. And production activities, because Professor, as my guru Professor Swaminathan used to say, development without destruction is very, very important. But is it practical? Then we need to have a complementary policy. Agriculture, industries and aquaculture, oil and gas sector, port and shipping. These are all production activities that either directly or indirectly impacting the coastal vegetation and the estuarine mangroves. That is why recently we had the Global Environment Facility project on mainstreaming, which when Murali was in UNDP, he only brought me into developing the PIF. That was a very interesting project where we did both in Sindhudurg and Godavari, where industrial sectors have been mainstreamed, because having a wildlife sanctuary is not enough, because the activities beyond wildlife sanctuary will definitely affect the flora and fauna of wildlife. So whatever we have, unless we curtail the agricultural runoff into the mangroves, it will not pay. So that is why we need to have a holistic approach involving many stakeholders, many institutions. Next slide, please. Well, why mangroves are important? My fellow speakers have already said mangroves, tidal marshes, and seagrasses are critical. Seagrasses means, that may be available. In Tamil Nadu, it is available. Andhra, it is not available. That is why we should have a holistic approach. Are critical along the world's coast, supporting coastal water quality, which is very important, healthy fisheries, and coastal protection against floods and storms. For example, mangroves are estimated to be worth at least US $1.6 billion each year in ecosystem services that support coastal livelihoods and human populations around the world. And we all know how many extent of mangroves we have, from Sundarbans to Gujarat. Next slide, please. And a 2006 report by the United Nations Environment Program noted that ecosystem services afforded by mangrove forests in Thailand are worth $35,000 US per hectare, while a 400 square kilometer area of mangrove forest in Matang, Malaysia supports a fishery worth US $100 million a year. I have reduced my slides as I had that calculated for Godavari also. Despite all this, knowing the goods and services provided by mangroves and coastal vegetation, they are undergoing rapid changes due to large-scale economic, social, and industrial development. Mangroves along the coast of India are no exception to this overexploitation. Next slide, please. These mangroves, together with other coastal and estuarine ecosystems, are livelihood sources for the fishermen living abutting mangroves and to other stakeholders, given the role mangroves play in enhancing the fishery resources and other ecosystem services they are providing. For example, coastal ecosystems, particularly, Professor Swaminathan advised us to go for 3C concept: casuarina, cashew, and coconut. And this should also be done through participatory approaches with JFM institutions like forest conservation councils and eco development committees. Unless we meet the needs of local communities, all the efforts will be exotic to the local communities and it might not be successful. Next slide, please. Hence, having said all this, my presentation, I would like to put it in such a way that given this background, there is a need to strengthen. We have the policy because we also have the National Committee on Mangroves and Coral Reefs, which has been guiding the conservation efforts through all the forestry department, biodiversity institutions, and all that. But still, we need to strengthen the policy and institutional mechanism. Having a policy and without a good institutional mechanism for a sustainable coastal and mangrove management, this should be with an exclusive policy, because we have the Indian Forest Act, Indian Wildlife Act, Coastal Zone Regulation Notification, and all that, and an Environment Act also, to effectively manage the remaining mangrove forests together with coastal forests with a clear guidelines and a strategy and an action plans. Why am I saying is that many think that mangroves are something useless and then you can't walk into that, it is full of mosquitoes and all that. But the protection, it is a nature-based solution with BioShield, which Ajanta Day also said, and Professor Swaminathan rightly pointed out this as soon as the tsunami 2004, that there is a need for coastal BioShields. How different they are in the sense, coastal shelter belts are there, but it is only with coconut, casuarina. Casuarina needles does not, promote microbes. So that is where we need multiple value tree species based BioShields. We have brought out a very interesting and important book on coastal BioShields, which is available. You can all refer to that in order to do the coastal BioShields. Next slide, please. Well, how to strengthen policy and suggesting is very easy, but how to strengthen policy and institutional mechanism? Presently, the mangroves and coastal forests are conserved and managed as per the Indian Forest Act, Forest Conservation Act, Wildlife Protection Act, Environmental Act, and also its principal thing of CRZ notification. The principal CRZ notification of 2011, and then the amended one in 2017 and 19, and by the respective coastal state forest acts. Forest acts have been changed. All the maritime states have their principal acts, and then the amended act. Next slide, please. Well, nevertheless, there is a need for comprehensive act called Sustainable Coastal and Mangrove Management Act, and a strategy and an action plan for addressing the issues and challenges of mangroves and coastal forest management. This will also look at sustainable mangrove management. In the sense, sustainable forest management is there. That comes under RED+. And also there is a need for, that is SFM. There is a need for SCMM. Next slide, please. And we should also tell the advantages. Otherwise, it is very difficult to convince the policy makers and decision takers. The advantages are, it will certainly help in bringing out an inclusive action plan in sustainable management of mangroves and coastal forests of India, including Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Because when we talk about India, many times we forget that, Andaman and Nicobar Islands are there. Because they are all very fragile and also geopolitically sensitive islands for us. Next slide. And when we say about advantages, but also at the same time we have issues and challenges. Commitment to adopt participatory approach as a management strategy to be tied with long-term projects. Our earlier speakers also beautifully said about the experiences of participatory approach. If we don't involve the local communities, local stakeholders, it will be exotic to them. And user and dependent communities as major and key stakeholders. Fishing community. There is a need and there is a scope also for bringing in forest department and fisheries department in managing coastal and mangrove bioresources, because they are working in silos. Forestry department works only for forestry things, and fisheries department. But here the community needs both. Unless mangroves are there, which are feeding and breeding grounds and nurseries for the fisheries. Because as Ram Subramaniam clearly said, the detritus, which is, very good feeding thing for juvenile fish and prawn and what is that, shellfish and finfish. Next slide, please. Commitment to adopt greater focus on ecological benefits. We have to say that. One slide. Greater focus on ecological benefits are very important. Unless, we tell this, community themselves sometimes may not know certain benefits which needs to be focused to them, because the elderly in the community know very well about the resources, but the youth, they have to be taught, because there is a missing link between generations. Those days, it is by word of mouth. They used to listen to stories and all that, and they used to learn from elders. Now, given the modern gadgets, they don't have time to listen to the elders. This is a very critical thing. Ecosystem development by habitat restoration through natural regeneration, providing alternatives and promotion of multiple livelihoods. If they are depending on mangroves, provide them with alternatives. And also, we did a very beautiful gender studies where we worked on 24-hour timeline for the women. What a woman does from 6 o'clock this morning to next day 6 o'clock. Then only wherever there is, only if there is free time to the women, they can be involved. Otherwise, this will be a burden to them. Next slide, please. Policy initiation for sustainable coastal management to enable forest and fisheries sectors to work together, which I said earlier. Respecting community traditional rights over fisheries, coastal areas and mangrove resources under eco-development committees. Because we did a beautiful study where, in Koringa Wildlife Sanctuary, in the Koringa River, the local communities have rights all along the river where, for 1 kilometer, it will be by Ramanapalam fishing village. Then it will be Matlapalam. If we don't include these things into the EDC, then they will not own it. Next slide, please. There should be community involvement, research and development, resource mobilization, and alternatives to community. These should be addressed while developing the policy. Next slide. Approach to address, we have spoken about issues and challenges, and we have to address it, and we need a roadmap for sustainable coastal and mangrove management. A developmental approach by which stakeholders identify, plan, implement, and evaluate programs for sustainable management of coastal vegetation and mangroves for mainstreaming coastal and mangrove conservation into production sectors. Because under CSR, we get a lot of funding And for example, I was, talking to, Dr. Ram Subramanian. He said, all the Reliance and many institutions, they have located their offices in the mangroves in Koringa. So these things, because they need to, do compensatory afforestation under Kampa. So they also should be roped in. It should facilitate broad participation in decision making, accountability of stakeholders, sustainable management of resources, equitable sharing of benefits. Unless they know I am going to get something out of my time input, then their contribution will not be very fruitful. Next slide, please. I'll be concluding. Roadmap for next slide, please. Ecological and economic benefits of mangroves and coastal forests should be highlighted for sustainable management through awareness generation through media. Now, because we all have smartphones, it is very easy through WhatsApp and all. And what is the issue? And if we address the issue, what will be the benefit? Next slide. Sociological and technological combination approach. Because technically, as we found out, when it gets elevated, tidal water inflow is reduced. So we have to dig a canal. That is a technological thing. Sociological thing is they are dependent on forest. They have to be provided with alternative livelihoods. Afforestation and sustainable management enhance its role play as a disaster reduction tool and as a carbon sink. Disaster reduction, because we have seen so many, and the frequency of cyclones are also increasing, and the nature of cyclone, from cyclone to super cyclone, we have been observing, and this is happening. So disaster reduction tool it is. The bioshield is prevents the winds and then tidal waves and all that entering into the habitation, and also it acts as a blue carbon sink. Next slide, please. Improve the management effectiveness of mangrove areas and coastal forests through identifying current weaknesses in mangrove management. What is it there? We have mangrove management plans, but it needs some teeth and also a financial input. If that is not there, as Professor Swaminathan said, conservation without money is mere conversation. So we need financial input also. Next slide, please. Sustainable financing mechanism by establishing a trust fund. Under UN system, and the UNDP is actively promoting trust fund, a national trust fund, and they say in other countries provincial trust fund. We can have state trust fund to manage wildlife management, because we have wildlife management plans for all the wildlife sanctuaries. It is a 10-year plan, but somehow the money that comes are directly coming to the state is not sufficient. That is what the local plan managers say. Strengthening the existing community conservation mechanism by aligning with JFM institutions and BMCs under Biological Diversity Act. BMCs are very, very important, and it is a very good tool under Biological Diversity Act, because BMCs are constitutionally backed. Once BMC is formed in any panchayat, it is formed once for all. JFM institutions are done with just GO. If the DFO changes, sometimes it may, it may not be taken forward, but it cannot be done like that. That is why I have been, advising NBA and the State Biodiversity Board and also the Forest Department to take BMCs very seriously and involve them in their territorial work plans and working plans of the territorial divisions and the wildlife management plans of the wildlife sanctuaries. Next slide, please. Sustainable income generating activities and implementing improved and sustainable fishing techniques. Otherwise, juveniles are caught and fishery resources are depleting. Next slide. So the act should address empowerment of women and women groups, men and youth, technically, socially, and economically to participate in mainstreaming activities. So this needs a lot of, cajoling, and then zealously people should work. And this is where NGO role is very important. Awareness generation at all levels of stakeholders. We cannot leave even one. All the key stakeholders and also, indirect stakeholders. Alternatives for dependency on mangroves. Creates economic stake for the dependent community. The act should create economic stake for the dependent community. Economic benefit to the user bar conserver community. And coordination among different departments involved in conservation, welfare, development, and management activities. And there is a very clear situation now, as I have been working in other countries also. Many countries do not accept if we say lack of capacity. Everybody says that is true. They have limited capacity, so we need to kind of involve them and bring them onto a common platform. Next slide, please. And so the strategy and action plan should include implementable guidelines, because even sometimes if you have the act, there are no rules, no guidelines, no frameworks, people will be blinking, even the planners, even the managers. In order to have a real breakthrough in achieving a multi-stakeholder involved mangrove conservation and management, this will ensure effective involvement of production sectors also. Next slide. And I always conclude this saying that generally those researchers and students, when we talk about policy, it will be high to them, but they should know what is the difference between act or law and how it is made. Generally, a policy is taken, and that is in the policy is discussed at ministries level, and it is discussed at cabinet level, and it is passed as a bill and placed in the developed as a bill and placed in the honorable parliament. Once it is passed in the honorable parliament, it gets enacted, and I mind you, unless it is gazetted, it is not enacted. Next slide, please. So policy and an act, that is what is the difference? Policy is a mechanism to address an issue of the state or a country. Act is a law to enforce a policy of the government throughout the state or the country. Next slide, please. So for implementing any act or policy, there should be rules. When I was working with the National Biodiversity Act, everybody was saying we will implement act and rules. First thing I told them is you will not implement rules. You will use the rules to implement the act. So for any act, there should be strategy and action plan, rules, and also an executional mechanism. If you have everything and if there is nobody to implement that, it will be so that is why there is a need, like Maharashtra government has established mangrove cell, which takes care of mangrove and coastal systems protection very exclusively. So one of my recommendations is that Government of India and all the maritime states take very seriously that they establish one mangrove and a coastal vegetation management cell. For that exclusively there should be a PCCF or whoever, and there should be institutional mechanism and a separate office to look at. Then only we can have very good mangrove and coastal management. Otherwise, our input-output ratio will be skewed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ravi. You have very nicely presented about the policy matters. Especially, you have clarified there are issues and challenges while making policy formation, and also how ecological sustenance of the coastal area. And you have developed a roadmap also. You have discussed a roadmap for the policy deviated implementation. And at last, you have actually the distinction between the rules and the act, actually. That is very important. Many of them get confused. That is very nice. And thank you very much. And as we are already more than half an hour now behind the schedule, and next is mine. You just introduce me within 1 minute. That is sufficient. Go ahead.
Okay. And I have great pleasure in introducing Dr. Pandurangan, whom I call as Pandu. He is my super senior in MSc, and since '84 we have been in constant touch, and he has been guiding me also like any other students. He has more than 15 students, and he has started his career in TBGRI, and he retired recently as the director of Jawaharlal Nehru TBGRI, and now he is advisor to Center for Innovation in Science and Action, and he has been actively concentrating on the taxonomy and systematics of rare and endangered species of flora, and he has kind of the notable taxonomic contribution include discovery of 28 flowering plants and 1 fungi species new to science. And he has worked on 460 endemic species, 126 RET species, 40 rediscoveries, and 37 new distributional records. That shows his constant contribution to the conservation of red category species. And he has established an exclusive RET species park in a 6-acre plot in JNTBGRI with the financial support of MOEF, and it contains 1,250 live specimens, which are including 145 endemic and rare species of India. And Dr. Pandurangan's name in recognition of his contribution to the plant taxonomy and conservation of biology. Indian Association IIT has conferred the Fellow of IIT in 2011 and awarded Professor V.V. Sivarajan Gold Medal. And with this brief introduction, I can speak for hours, but there is a lack of time, and I invite my senior Dr. Pandurangan to speak on phytogeographic, evolutionary, and economic importance of coastal endemic plants of Kerala. To you, Dr. Pandu.
Thank you, Dr. Ravishankar. Friends, as almost now 8 o'clock, I will be next 20 minutes. I will quickly go through about the phytogeographic and evolutionary and economic importance of the coastal endemic plants of Kerala, because since the symposium deals with the coastal agriculture, and this endemics is very important, because endemic species, by understanding the endemic species, we can able to understand the biological uniqueness of a particular area, actually, in fact, because endemics are those species which are actually distributed in a restricted geographical area, so that it is not known to many people unless otherwise you are specialized in that. We have surveyed and worked for almost a decade in the coastal endemics, which I thought that to share the academic community so that a greater awareness will be created hereafter. So that if you look into the endemism concept, it was first proposed by the De Candolle in his book on Prodromus systematics naturalis regnis vegetabilis, published in 1820. He used nearly 45,000 species for his book, and he recognized the certain species which are confined to only certain smaller areas, and it is not a cosmopolitan. Then later on, Adolf Engler, another scientist from Germany, he has actually classified this endemism into two based on the evolutionary and the geological age. It's called paleo-endemism and neo-endemism, because certain characters he found out that it is actually what you call the older, that is the certain flowering plants are originated much earlier than the certain species which are of recent origin. So this is now, it is understood right now, endemic taxa means the species with restricted geographical area, and it is having evolutionary and age affinity, so that there are two endemics are being practiced right now. It is a paleo-endemics. Paleo-endemics means species which are once enjoyed wider distribution, but now due to its unadaptable nature, they are confined to the smaller geographical areas. In other words, in the next one is the neo-endemics. Neo-endemics are of very recent origin, induced by chromosomal rearrangements, induced by adaptive radiations. So that since it is a newly originated, they are not having enough evolutionary time to expand its population. Again, they are confined to smaller geographical areas. In other words, in both the endemism, species are restricted to smaller geographical areas, which helps to understand the evolution of the flora. Very recently now, some people, they use it as a spatial distribution is also to describe certain endemics. That's called the biotope endemics, and stenotope or a local endemics, then politically endemics, and then regional endemics. Now let us see quickly, we'll go through. This is how evolution actually takes place. When a species originated, that's called a neo-endemics, then it is having a expansion, stabilization, then it takes a diversification. From the diversification, it takes a mitigation, migration and fragmentation, leads to contraction, then become relictual phase, and then ultimately it become extinction. This is called paleo-endemism. So now let us see how our flora, if Indian flora comes under, whether it is neo-endemics or paleo-endemics especially. Let us discuss. See that as I pointed out, paleo-endemics are certain characters which can be easily recognized. These are mostly of gigantic tree characters, actually, predominantly arborescent and taxonomically isolated, and always it will have the disjunct distribution, because it is once widely distributed, there is an intermediate species or get extincted, so that there will be a wider disjunct distribution occurs. And also it supports based on the possible fossil evidences which gives. For example, now these are some of the examples from the Indian subcontinent of our predominantly arborescent trees, like a Poecilonuron. There are 2 species of Poecilonuron are predominantly restricted to Kerala region. Meteoromitras. There are Otonophalium. Erinocorpus is actually from Maharashtra. So these are the endemic, particularly paleo-endemics, which I am just showing for your knowledge. And these are fossil evidence. See, there is a Elaeocorpus ilan. There is a fossil evidence which is closely related to Elaeocorpus mundroniae, which is right now available in southern Western Ghats. The next one, Homozalium, Homoxylon, is actually relative of Homalium travancoricum from Agasthyamala Biosphere Reserve. So this gives that these paleo-endemics are very old origin. This is the one. Whereas go for the neo-endemics, as I pointed out, of a recent origin due to chromosomal rearrangements, and particularly if you see, their ploidy level will be always increased in that, from the basic chromosome to multiplies. That is why ploidy level is actually used for agriculture for crop improvement, and most of them are actually of neo-endemic origin. And see that some of them, which I am giving the example right now from the coastal endemic regions. This is the biotope endemics, that is regions that is distinguished by a particular environmental conditions, which we cannot see the adjacent areas, except particularly in climate, soil, and altitude. So these assemblage of organisms are very unique and they have their own survival tactics actually. These are the species which we are having collected from the coastal endemics of Malabar actually. And you see that some of them are very recent. We can see the less than 5 square kilometer actually restricted, and many of the ephemerals in the plateaus are actually of recent neo-endemics actually. See, then comes into the political. Politically, some of the species confined to these. For example, we have worked on the entire Kerala and found out that nearly 262 endemic species exclusively confined to Kerala region. And among that, nearly 62 species are only in the coastal regions of 560 kilometer length, right from Kasaragod to Trivandrum. If you take average, every 9 kilometer, there is one endemic species. This is very important, especially from the floristic survey, and having maximum number of endemic species with such a small area, 500 kilometer, it itself is having uniqueness. It shows uniqueness and it deserves for conservation. And another one, geographical range, wider geographical, particularly for example, in India to Sri Lanka, normally any phytogeographers consider the Sri Lanka is a part of actually Western Ghats because of the distinct and similar phytogeography. And Hooker actually considered the entire Sri Lanka is a part of our Western Ghats. So there is certain species like Salacia oblonga or Eriocolum or particularly Digitaria species are quite common for both the areas. So that itself shows that they are closely phytogeographically related actually. Now let's come to India, southern India. The peninsular India having nearly, including Sri Lanka, having 7,000 species, of which almost 3,049 species are endemic. That means 52% endemic species. That means how much uniqueness we have in this phytogeographical region. But if you come to the, because of this island is the maximum number of species are restricted because it does not have outside its island. This is called, there is a good theory is called Highland theory is applicable. And here the Western Ghats having nearly 1,600 kilometer length, having nearly 851 endemic species in this region. And now come to the today's discussion, especially on the Kerala. We have extensively surveyed for almost 10 years and determined based on the endemic species, 11 endemic belts. These are the 11 endemic belts are applicable to Kerala for 262 species are endemic. Among that, the coastal endemics, below I am, see the coastal endemic starts from Kasaragod to Trivandrum or Pullur, the border. These areas having nearly 62 species and they are confined to very, very important, that is northern Malabar coast. Northern Malabar coast is actually very important for especially on the grassland species, particularly 13 species are endemic. And southern lowland belt, particularly in Ernakulam and Alapura region, comes under the 20, and ecologically sensitive areas, nearly 30, that is mangroves, sacred groves, and wetlands. Let us see in detail. You see that the northern Malabar coast actually comes under the 4 districts, Kasaragod, Kannur, Kozhikode, and Malappuram. And the southern lowland, actually lowland area comes under the Ernakulam, Kottayam, Alapura, and Kollam. And in addition, in between these, the ecologically sensitive areas like mangroves, sacred groves, wetlands, and marshy backwaters. These are the area is highly endemic, nearly 62 endemic species, which are not seen anywhere other than the coastal regions. That means from the coastal seashore to almost 8 to 10 kilometers. I say actually the very narrow stretch of coastal area of the Kerala. And we are not allowing them to expand their populations because of our anthropogenic activities. And in spite of the fact they grow in, they evolve, adapt, and grow among the human being, midst of the human being, and do their ecological services to the humanity. So let me see some of the examples I will give you. Now we will go back to the Malabar coast. Malabar coast is very peculiar. That 4 districts having very laterites with a lot of what you call iron content and very hard soil, very hard lateritic region. You see, this is during dry phase, that is March, April, and May, mid-May. You will get see that it's dried. Once monsoon starts, that is early May, that is pre-summer, and then June, you can see that lives spring into action. The lives have comes, and there are different species of, particularly 3 genus, Ischemum, Dimeria, and Garnosia, are highly developed in these areas. And if you see that next month, that is between July, that is July midst and then end of July, you see that how these barren lateritic plateaus have come into action. And the next to see that if you go into the August 2nd week, the entire area, how it blooms, you see that it is very important for a treaty to a phytogeographer and a planter and a scientist. The area will be bloom, and you see the maximum number of ephemerals comes, the life cycle will be 3 to 4 months. See here in this one slide itself, you have more than a dozen species. Particularly there is you can see the Utricularia, different Utricularia, and then Eriocolon, then Impatiens, and there is that is particularly actually Papilionaceous members, and so many Camelinaceae. So we have recorded in almost around 20 square kilometers of these plateaus 857 species. Among that, 600 and odd species are ephemerals, and they are very unique. And then immediately after the September month, during September almost leads to the dry phase. So the seeds will remain for the next monsoon, so that you will come into the action. So in these areas, grasses are very dominant, and particularly Ischemum, there are 13 species are exclusively endemic to this area. So this shows that these are of very recent origin and very important and for the economic point of view. And see that these are the grass species described from these plateaus and are exclusively endemic to the coastal region. And you come into the ecologically next sensitive area is actually the lowland region. See that plenty of species are described in the freshwater. That is Dimeria, then Ischemum coilanensis from Coilan backwaters, Ischemum vambanodens. There are plenty of Rotala, Nymphoides. These are the closely relatives of our Tamara, that is the lotus group. So these are all exclusively here. More than 20 species are endemic to these wetlands. And you see that this is the next Kuttanad wetlands. See, very important. And the wetland vegetation is characteristically dominated by angiosperm aquatic angiosperms. Nearly 130 species of flowering plants were recorded. Among that, 28 species are endemic to this region. You see the plenty of endemic, and this is the one important. This is actually Buchnania, that is actually very endemic to these particular regions. And in fact, we have recorded after the type actually. And there is another important balsam, that is Hydrosera triflora. It is very unique to these wetlands and apart from other endemic species. And you see that the specialty collections, because they are very unique, these wetlands. When you are go for taxonomically working on this is the Lepironia articulata. It is a very interesting species, which was thought to be even extinct from India, were been re-recorded. And this is another Rhynchospora, another endemic species, which actually we can see that it was first described from Australia, and a few years later it was recorded in Papua New Guinea, then another 5 years recorded in Malayan Peninsula, and now it is in India, because probably the bird movement from the continent, they carry the seeds actually, and then seeds will be thrown through their fecal matters, and then so that it gives you, by studying these coastal endemics, even the plant movement theory and all, and also for the new species Ischimum, and there is a 5 species grass species are exclusively endemic to this particular, that is Alapura area actually. And the next important is actually the what you call the mangroves, that is sensitive areas. As everybody has talked about mangroves, the mangrove status in Kerala is almost negligible when compared to other states, because at the time of independence, Kerala was having almost 700 square kilometer, now reduced to only 70 square kilometer. Among that, the true mangrove is only 30 to 40 square kilometers. And among that, 5 true endemics are, there are 21 endemics and 45 associates are recorded. Among that, 5 true endemics are actually true mangroves are endemic. These are some of the species which many of our colleagues have shown. I just, for the visual treat, I just show that you see some of them, and we'll go ahead. These are the mangrove associates. There are 45 mangrove associates are recorded. And the next important significant area is sacred groves. These sacred groves, there are 2 types of sacred groves. Sacred groves are nothing but the remnants of the old vegetation in that particular area, remnants. There are particularly the sacred groves in northern Kerala. They always formed in a shallow, in the lateritic plateaus and stunted evergreen trees actually. In a single, that may be a few cent to few acres, but still contain very good number of endemic species within that if you analyze. For example, this is the one area having almost around 6 to 8 acres, but you see that there are 13 endemic species are exclusively confined to this Madaipara in Kannur region. And see, and when you come to sacred groves of southern Kerala after Ernakulam, Alapura, Kollam, the sacred groves are very dense like evergreen forest and grows 30 to 40 meters. And they are very important genetic resources, particularly the Myristica. Wild Myristica species are, good number of species are available. And also, as I told, these endemics are very important, especially in economically, as I pointed out. They are wild edible. That is, the people are using it. As I told, they grow and do their provisional services. See, the people use it actually as a food plants for nearly 25 endemics, local endemics for food plants. Among them, wild edibles. These are the wild edibles, and then followed by the tubers. Edible tubers are almost vegetables and tubers, almost 7 to 8 species. And these are the endemic medicinal plants. More than 12 endemics are extensively used for the medicinal purposes. And even there are ornamentals. There are beautiful ornamental plants which can be used for our landscape, our future horticulture. Very recently, we found an exclusive Hypomia. This is the first colonizer along the always sea coast. There is one Hypomia pesca prae, white variety. Very recently, we found out this is actually, it is actually somehow it has come here. I don't know how it has come. It is a subspecies Brasilia. And if you see that wild relatives of cultivated crops, there are more than 30 species are actually forming the wild relatives of cultivated crops, and you see the some of the coastal endemics of wild relatives of cinnamon, which are of high economic importance actually. And you see that the grasses, actually, as I told you, the dominant grass species, nearly around 33 fodder grasses are being harvested here, and they are used for both thatching as well as for storing it for during off monsoon for cattle actually. See, these are all, people are harvesting without investing any money on these plains actually. And also, as I pointed out, by studying this, you can able to understand the evolutionary aspects of our own flora. And we know that the southern continent of our subcontinent is closely related to mostly African flora, that is Afrotropical realms. So that we have a ferry, actually we have the biological ferries. You see, we have described, people described that is a Lindernia from Madaipara in Kannur, having the next closest relatives in Tanzania. So that these are the only two places where this particular species occurs. So it gives you the evolution. You can understand the plants how evolved and then distributed across the globe. Then the next one, if we see that recently published species, actually Crinum malabaricum by Yadav group from Shivaji University. But now we found out the relatives, one is actually in Thailand and the next one is Cameroon. See that how the genetic exchanges between the continents, probably this strengthen the continental drift and then movement of particularly the Gondwana land. And the third one, very recently we have discovered, and about a few months back we have published it. It is the Euploca. Euploca battlia we have discovered from this northern, that is Malabar coast. And when we checked that, their actually root is Africa, Madagascar, and then Australia and South America. See, the flowering characters, everything is exactly matching. That is, probably they have moved during this continental drift, and it has now this parent stock is in south, that is western, that is Gondwana land. Western Gondwana has gone to Africa and South America. Eastern Gondwana into Antarctica, India and Australia. So that it gives you clue how the species remain in an isolated pocket. It gives you tremendous phytogeographical importance. And now comes to the development and survival. See, because this area is very hard and having a, what you call the iron content, people, there is a mining, extensive mining is going on during non-monsoon period. People remove, so that it affects the seed bank of these endemic species. And there is a lot of what you call the tourism. And this is actually the coastal area. Even the government owned the rare earth companies, they actually mining for that rare earth metals, so that the entire coastal area is under degradation. See that they left many of these endemics at the mercy of our human being. In fact, they left themselves to fend. That is what I want to tell. These are the, and also the coastal endemics. Actually, coastal Kerala is a very tremendously pressure, because more than 2,000 people per square kilometer is living. And also the west coast is the first one to receive the fury of the monsoon, and they are going to manage, because, and these particularly the mangroves actually to some extent protect, but still some of the areas where this mangroves were destroyed, where actually the sea erosion takes place, and then lot of endemic species are on the peril actually because of this. But in spite of all this, we should see that these coastal endemic species have developed many ingenious ways to overcome and then survive. Some of the species have the polymorphic leaves. The same species have different leaves depending upon the moisture regime. That is why many taxonomies sometimes confused and even take it as a different species, but they are actually single species if you observe closely. And there are different adaptive traits like a carnivory. Some of them are, this is the carnivorous species to overcome the deficiency of the nitrogen and phosphorus. And then succulents, they adapt a succulent characters. And then C4 mechanism, most of these grasses are in C4 mechanism. and then subterranean perinating organs. Many of them are developed a tuber and then perinating actually, and then abnormal seed germination also will be observed. This is even some of the grasses we could able to find out the what you call just like our the vivipary. You can see the seeds germinated within the spike actually. Then Poikilohori, this is a new phenomenon we found that it will be actually just appears to be dried, but once it get wet and it get regained and then start actually multiplying. Then vegetative propagation is also developed, and semi-parasitism. Most of semi-parasitism actually, most of them are actually root parasites and survive during the off season. So why I want to this show you that how people look at the coastal endemics in a different perspectives. The evolutionary biologists have explored the range restriction as a cause for the speciation actually, but the community ecologists have conceptualized as one of the several forms of rarity, because most of these endemism are very restricted distribution, so they are actually closer to the rare groups. So conservation biologists view range rarity is as a first step for the extinction process. If it is inchoate, if it is a paleo-endemism, it's okay, because it has completed its minimum geological period of time. But where is the neo-endemics? We are actually preventing its expansion, so they are confined. That means they are not giving its accepted evolutionary time for expansion and then retrieval. So this is called actually man-made botanicals, and we should take care of them. And then finally, the conservation planners always give more importance for the endemism to determine the hotspot. But unfortunately, these coastal endemics did not get much attention because of their very narrow and then very short life period. So I will conclude it. And what I want to tell you is, at least now the scientists and the academics, we should survey the entire 7,500 square kilometer, 705,000 kilometer length of the coastal area, and found out unique coastal landscape with unique ecosystems and species, and conserve them for posterity. Thank you very much, and I thank the organizers for giving me an opportunity for presenting our work for the last 10 years. And my colleague, Dr. Shaji, is actually involved in this investigation process. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Pandurangan, and Dr. Pandu has clearly elaborated on the concept of endemism, both paleo and neo-endemism, and the contributions of fossil evidences to assess the endemic status of taxa, and he has clearly specified the distribution of endemic species and the need for their conservation, common endemic species of southern India and Sri Lanka, and the anthropogenic actions affecting the endemic species. And interestingly, he has pointed out the connection between migratory birds and the plant distribution across continents, and also the endemic plants of sacred groves that host keystone species. And he has clearly spoke about the richness in the endemic aquatic species, endemism in aquatic species, grass species, and coastal areas of Kerala. And I think my recommendation would be there is a need for such studies all over the coastal India. With this, as we have crossed our limits, I request Dr. Deepanjan Das Majumdar to speak on application of modified forest canopy density model to identify mangrove forest dynamics during pre and post Aila cyclone. And your time is 10 minutes, Dr. Das. Over to you, Dr. Das. Quick. Dr. Das? Hello? Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, please go ahead. Quick.
1 minute, sir. I am sharing my screen.
Yes, please. No problem.
My screen is coming, sir.
Not yet. Yes, now it is on.
Okay. So respected chair, co-chair, and the other delegates, the topic of my today's presentation is on application of modified forest canopy density model to identify the mangrove forest dynamics during the pre and post Ayla cyclone. So this is my study area. I have concentrated my study on these two islands, Pentis and Lothian Island of Sundarban. As we know, the Pentis and Lothian Island are situated along the Saptamukhi estuary, about 10 to 12 kilometers eastward from the main Hooghly estuary of the South Chobbish Pargana district. And secondly, the Ayla cyclone, which made its landfall at the peak intensity on the 25th May, 5th of May on 2009. And this cyclone has caused a severe damage to the mangrove forest in the Sundarban, as well as in the Sundarban part of India, as well as in Bangladesh. And these two islands were immensely affected by the Ayla cyclone. The mangrove vegetation was very severely affected by the Ayla cyclone. That's why I choose these two islands for this study. So the basic objectives of my research is to apply the modified forest canopy density model on Pentis and Lothian Islands to assess the accuracy of the MFCD model using the canonical discriminant analysis, and finally to assess the impact of the Ayla cyclone on the forest canopy density by calculating the changes that took place between 2009 and 2010. So Landsat, I have used two Landsat 5 data of 2009 for pre-Ayla post from the pre-Ayla time, and 2010 from the post-Ayla segment to monitor the changes in the forest canopy density of the two islands. Firstly, some radiometric and atmospheric corrections was done for both the images using some standard approach, and after that the at-sensor spectral radiance of the pixel of the satellite images were transferred to the top of atmospheric reflectance. Actually, the top of atmospheric reflectance is very much important, while the goal is to monitor the vegetation condition using satellite imagery. So top of atmospheric reflectance is essential to for the computation of different spectral indices. In the next slide, I want to show you some spectral indices that is useful for modeling the modified forest canopy density model. The three main preliminary indices are the advanced vegetation index, second is the bare soil index, third is the normal shadow index. On the basis of these three, the later three indexes were being computed. And some other spectral indices were also computed, such as the NDVI, ANVI, SAVI, PVI, COSRI, NDWI, just to validate the modified forest canopy density model. And here I am showing the advanced vegetation index, that is the AVI. This is the first model, first spectral indices for the modified forest canopy density model. Here you can find that the AVI of 2009 ranged from 0.59 to 3.62, whereas in 2010 it is increased from 0.34 to 4.173. So, however, much of the area falls under the lower classes, thereby indicating the poor health of the mangroves. Secondly, the bare index, it is actually indicating the degree of exposure of the bare ground surfaces, and shows an increase from the 1.78 to 0.04 in 2009 to minus 2.45 to 32 in the 2010 segment. The extent as computed for the bare soil surface has increased in 2010. And this much increase were taken place around the previously existing bare soil surface, and mostly in the northern part of the Lothian Island. The next one is the shadow index. The shadow index represents primarily dependent on the amount of the tall vegetation present in the area, such as tree-like vegetation, which cast a significant shadow. In post-Ayla situation, there is a significant decrease you can find in the SI values in case of Lothian Island, whereas SI values have increased in the inner portion of the Pentis Island. Here you can find the change. Here this is low and here this is high. And on the basis of the advanced vegetation index and bare soil index, we have computed a principal component analysis and took the first principal component analysis to generate the vegetation density map. Similarly, the the scale shadow index were being prepared by combining AVI and advanced vegetation index with the shadow index, and took the first principal component as the scale shadow index. And finally, after integrating the vegetation density, that means this vegetation density and this scale shadow index, after integrating these two indices, I have finally computed the forest canopy density model for the study area. And forest canopy density model of the study area for 2009 and 2010. This is the pre-ILA situation and this is the post-ILA situation. And forest canopy density model for each year was divided into 5 different classes on the basis of the percentage of vegetation cover. So less than 20% represents no forest, 20 to 40% represents low forest, 40 to 60% open canopy forest, 60 to 80% medium canopy forest, and greater than 80% is the closed canopy forest. Here I am showing the distribution in from 2009 and 2010 for under each category: no forest, low forest, open canopy forest, medium canopy forest, and the closed canopy forest. After that, I have correlated the different other indices, as I mentioned earlier, the NDVI, ANVI, SFI, to validate the result of the modified forest canopy density. And here you can find that for both the year 2009 and 2010, the correlation between the FCD and the other spectral indices that I used to validate this particular model were very high, more than 90% achieved in every cases. After that, I have checked the accuracy of the present model, that is a modified forest canopy density model for 2009 and 2010. And for both the year, it is observed that more than 70% accuracy has been achieved, and which is fair enough to accept the model for interpretation purpose. And in this next step, I have computed the pixel combination approach to monitor the final change detection, that is which is one of my prime goal, that what are the changes took place between 2009, there is a pre-ILA, to 2010, there is a post-ILA situation. And here I have used a unique modified pixel to pixel change detection approach. Here you can find I have recodified the different classes: no forest, low forest, open canopy forest, medium canopy forest, and closed canopy forest into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have recoded that thing, and finally reclassified FCD and reclassified FCD 2010 has been generated. And in this diagram you can find I have given one example how the coding has been done for the monitoring of pixel to pixel change detection. If the value, suppose say for example, if the value of one pixel in 2009 is 1 and the same pixel in 2010 is also 1, then the return will be 11. That means no change. Similarly, if the value of any pixel in 2009 is 1 and the same pixel in 2010 represents 3, that means the return is 13. And that means the number 1 class, that is the no forest, has been shifted into the open canopy forest. That's why this is 13. Similarly, 14 represents no forest, has been shifted to medium canopy forest. 15 represents no forest has been shifted to closed canopy forest. In this way, I am combining all the classes and got this result. This is the final output where I have mentioned all the changes that took place, and I have thematically represent all the changes that took place from pre-ILA to post-ILA situation. And this is the change detection matrix that I have computed on the basis of this map. And the change detection matrix was developed using this class combination approach. And from this change detection matrix, it is observed that the between 2009 and 2010, the overall area under the no forest and the low forest has increased, whereas the total area under the medium canopy forest and closed canopy forest has decreased. The degeneration of the canopy cover due to the prevalence of the unhealthy condition of the negative class migration has been taken place. That is the shift from the higher canopy order to the lower canopy order. And medium canopy forest has been suffered maximum degradation since 30.79%, as you clearly the the values are depicted here. That's the medium canopy forest has suffered maximum degradation since 30.
Dr. Das, try to conclude, please.
Okay, sir. And here you can find that the the pixels are showing the canopy degradation areas, where total 14.023% areas have been degraded from the 2009 to 2010 pre-ALA to post-ALA situation, and 8.598% square kilometer area has been regenerated, and there are 28.967 square kilometer area where no changes has been taken place. The degeneration has mainly occurred in the interiors of the island. Here you can find the interiors of the island. Degeneration has been occurred due to the cyclone-induced storm surge and the long-term inundation and the creation of the hypersaline tracts. So in this way, you can find. I have concluded here with some major findings that between 2009 and 2010, significant changes in the canopy density has been taken place, and the most severe changes that have been most significant changes that have been observed in the degradation case: closed canopy forest transferred to medium canopy forest 5.11%, medium canopy forest to open canopy forest 30 to 79%, and open canopy forest to low forest is 16.87%. And combining these three as a total degradation of the mangrove forest. Similarly, regeneration has been taken place in few places, mainly in the section of the island rim section, where open canopy forest transferred to medium canopy forest and low forest transferred to open canopy forest. So these are my three conclusions. The high mangroves are most severely affected by the cyclonic winds. Positive class migration of canopy density has occurred due to the short-term inundation and deposition of huge amount of sediment during the cyclone. Generous deposition of sediment after the cyclone has develop a surface where new mangroves can be generated. And on the other hand, there are clear signs of mangrove degradation are found in cases of negative class migration, where closed canopy forest to medium canopy forest to open canopy forest due to the long-term inundation and the hypersalinity tract. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for quickly concluding, and it's a really good presentation on different techniques in assessing the vegetation density. And Dr. Das has presented on integrated actions for assessing forest canopy density. And using all these advanced methods, he nicely projected the canopy changes and the pattern, how the mangroves were affected by Cyclone Alia and the measures that needs to be taken in future. And I now request Dr. Swagata Bera to make a presentation on assessment of land use, land cover change, and vegetation health conditions for the implementation of integrated management policy in South Andaman Island area. And I also request you to conclude within 10 minutes, please. Thank you very much. Over to you, Dr. Swagata Bera.
Good evening, everybody, respected chairperson, co-chairperson, and all other participants. Myself, Dr. Swagata Bera. The topic of my today's discussion is assessment of land use, land cover change, and vegetation health conditions for implementation of integrated management policy in South Andaman Island. Andaman and Nicobar group of islands are rich in resources. The available resources of this island are grouped into 6 major classes. These are climatic resources, soil and land resources, forest resources, animal resources, marine resources, and aesthetic resources. Andaman and Nicobar islands support very luxuriant and rich vegetation due to tropical hot and humid climate with abundant rain. As per the Champion and Peck classification of forest type, the forest of Andaman and Nicobar Island belongs to 4 groups. These are tropical wet evergreen, tropical semi-evergreen, tropical moist deciduous, and littoral and swamp forest. And further, the forest 4 categories are classified into 13 forest types. Due to the geographical isolation of this island, a large degree of endemism exists, which means that the ecosystem of these islands are vulnerable to disturbance. These are some photographs of major ecosystem of South Andaman Island. These are mangrove ecosystem, coral reef ecosystems, marine ecosystem, agricultural ecosystem, and urban ecosystems. The table shows different goods, service, and function of major ecosystems. Timber, fuel, food, byproduct are some goods, and carbon storage, air and water purification, and nutrient cycling, and habitat for wildlife are some function of the forest ecosystems, provided the different services and goods by the forest ecosystem. Now I will focus on the integrated forest management. What is integrated forest management? Integrated forest management approaches are a key strategy to integrate nature conservation objectives into sustainable forest management. Forest management focuses on managing vegetation, restoring ecosystem, reducing hazards, and maintaining forest health. About 86.93% of total land area of Andaman and Nicobar group of islands is covered by forest resources. And the forest practices in Andaman and Nicobar Island have undergone significant changes in the last more than 125 years of scientific forestry, influences by major policy changes and socio-economic situation. In this current context, integrated forest management and policy is needed for Andaman and Nicobar group of islands to protect the environment for future generations, for sustainable development of natural ecosystems, for sustainable use of forest products for local inhabitants, and for biodiversity conservation. The objectives are to quantify the spatiotemporal pattern of land use land cover changes during the last decade and identifying the major biophysical factors governing land use land cover changes through modern geospatial techniques, to assess the vegetation health condition, for monitoring the impact of weather and anthropogenic activities to the vegetation, to provide a more scientific basis for the conservation and sustainable development. This is the location map of my study area. South Andaman district has been selected for this study. In this present study, Landsat 7 ATM Plus image of the year 2002 and Landsat 8 data of year 2014 has been used. And the land use land cover features were identified by various elements like tone, texture, size, pattern, etc. in the satellite image, and intensively collected ground truth data. Maximum likelihood classification method was chosen as a classification technique for this image classification. On the basis of literature knowledge and field experience of the study area, 13 land use land cover classes were adopted. And inundated area classes has been selected only for 2014 image classification. These are the two land use land cover classification maps. Here we can see the land use land cover diversity on intermountain valley section of Havelock Island. The land use land cover diversity depends on the different topographical units and soil characteristics of the study area. And here also we can see the land use land cover diversity of the study area in the coastal region. The table shows that the land use land cover changes in the South Andaman district from 2002 to 2014, and this is the graphical representation of the percentage of land use land cover changes in 2014. The land use land cover change shows that the percentage of deforestation during the last decade for human development activities is comparatively less. Strict Forest Conservation and Management Acts and plan prevent excessive timber and forest resource extraction in the study area, whereas mangrove are decreased near 6.44% due to the sedimentation in the coastal area, tourism activities, and tsunami effect. These are some photographs of forest resource losses by tsunami 2004. And three different vegetation health indices has been derived from the same images of the study area. Vegetation condition index, thermal condition index, temperature condition index, and vegetation health index are the three main vegetation indices calculated for this study. And BCI, TCI, and VHI indicating the cumulative moisture, temperature, and total vegetation health condition of the study area representatively. And 6 thematic maps has been generated by calculating these 3 vegetation indices. These are the vegetation condition index map. This is the thermal condition, temperature condition index map, and these are the vegetation health index map. And each of these thematic map show a scale from 0 to 100. Here 0 means extreme stress and 100 means suitable condition, and 50 represents average condition. The new vegetation health index is characterizing moisture, health, thermal condition, and vegetation health condition for prediction and estimation of losses in vegetation or forest resources in the South Andaman district. The result of the vegetation condition index in South Andaman show that the VCI value is low in the rural settlement and agricultural and floodware and its surroundings area, whereas it becomes medium to high in the reserve and protected forest area. Due to the comparative hot weather in the human activity zone, the temperature condition index also is low in this area and high in the natural landscape because of cooler weather condition. The result of vegetation health index is same with VCI and TCI. Therefore, the overall vegetation condition is good in the natural side of the study area and poor in the rural and urban area due to the increasing human development activities. On the basis of the result of land use land cover classification and vegetation health indices, I have been proposed the environmental zoning approach for South Andaman Island, and here different topographic units are identified as an environmental zone, and each of environmental zone have some specific land use and land cover practices, and this environmental zone also have some environmental significance. Finally, in the conclusion, I like to highlight that the land use land cover changes in South Andaman district mainly because of the population growth, urbanization, tourism recreation, and 26 December 2004 tsunami. The overall result of land use land cover change show critical adverse and undesirable environmental impact. Therefore, it is needed to monitor the land use land cover change to prepare the effective, sustainable and management policy for the conservation and sustainable development of the natural ecosystem. The overall vegetation condition is good in the natural side of the study area and poor in the rural and urban area due to the increasing human development activities. And finally, the environmental zoning approach has been proposed for South Andaman district as a management tool for the conservation and sustainable development of the natural ecosystem. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Saugata Bera, for concluding in time. And Dr. Saugata has nicely spoken on the available natural resources of Andaman and Nicobar Islands, and why there is a need for integrated forest management, including sustainable forest management, and how it can be assessed using the degradation of forest can be assessed using ALAC assessment patterns. And in fact, your presentation took me to Andaman Islands, where I did the tsunami assessment as a member of the high-level national committee. Thank you for your nice presentation. And I now
Thank you, sir.
request Dr. Saravanan Raju to make his presentation. It will be nice if you can club both your presentations, please, if it is possible.
Stop.
টিনা স্টপ শেয়ার, টিনা স্টপ শেয়ার কর উপর থেকে, উপর থেকে স্টপ শেয়ার কর, উপরে গিয়ে স্টপ।
Dr. Saugata, you have to come out of your presentation.
Yes, sir.
Please close your presentation.
Yeah.
Good evening, Chair, Co-Chair, and the participants. I am Dr. Raj Saravanan, Scientist, Marine Biodiversity Division of Mandavaram Regional Center of CMFRI. I hope all you can hear me and as well as see my PowerPoints.
Yes.
And yes, I am presenting my study which was carried out during 2017, just before the Gaja cyclone in the Muthupatti Lagoon, which is located along the southeast coast of India, along Tamil Nadu coast. So this Muthupatti Lagoon ecosystem is very unique ecosystem, and as you know, there are two kinds of lagoon, atoll lagoons and coastal lagoons. So we have very few lagoon ecosystem, like Chilka and as well as here this Muthupatti. And this Muthupatti Lagoon comes under the Muthupatti Reserve Forest and covers an area of 16 square kilometer. And this has a connection with the Park Bay with the 1 kilometer wide mouth in the southern part. And during the low tide time, this would have 1 to 2 feet of depth, and during high tide, this would have 3 to 4 feet of depth. We are shallow lagoon, and the boundaries of lat long, which was carried out by our studies, has been given in this. And when we look at this lagoon, this cannot be directly accessed from land. We have to navigate through meandering distributaries by boats to reach out this vast lagoon. And this is a part of the Greater Vedaranyam Swamp. It is one of the largest coastal wetland in the state of Tamil Nadu. And here I am showing you the approach which we have carried out during our studies. The marks are given in yellow points, and this is how we have to go through the boats in these distributaries to reach the Muthupatti Lagoon. And the location is also shown where it is on the southern part of Tamil Nadu. This is Park Bay. And here this Muthupatti mangrove ecosystem, which covers about 12,020 hectares. Out of this 12,020 hectares, only 15% is healthy mangroves, and whereas 60% is in a degraded states, and the remaining 50% area is occupied by the lagoon. And there are nearly 5 distributaries of Kaveri, Pomniyar, Korayar, Kandaparchar, Kalathiniyar, Marakorayar, discharging waters into Muthupatti Lagoon. But these are all seasonal river flow. Only during northeast monsoon from October to December, the freshwater discharge is taking place. Other parts of year, there is negligible the freshwater discharge. And I now would like to recollect Dr. Mondal's and Dr. Ramasubramanian's point, how it is important freshwater discharge into mangrove. Otherwise, what would happen? I just would like to bring to your mind what they have shown during their presentation. And here also in Muthupatti Lagoon ecosystem, the important ecosystem service is fishing, and fishing livelihood is an important, and collecting juvenile as well as seed collection of sea bass and the brooders as well as prawns, and important livelihood activities going on there. fishing occupation, as well as this mangrove ecosystem is there, and the migratory seabirds like greater flamingos feeding on nursery grounds is Muthupetta Lagoon. When we look at the diversity aspect of that, there are around 6 species of our mangrove species and 6 species of sea grasses and 10 species of seaweeds have been recorded. And as pointed out by Mondal during his presentation, the salinity is very high, which ranges from 35 to 45 ppt in this lagoon. Towards the landward side, when we come through the landward side, the salinity increases up to 45 ppt. So the dominant species, mangrove species, is Avicennia marina, which can tolerate the higher salinities. And nearly 160 species of birds are recorded in this Muthupetta Lagoon ecosystem, which offers as a feeding, nestling, and roosting grounds for these species. Out of this 160, 80, nearly 50% species are migratory species, like heron, egrets, flamingos, spider stork, and pelican, teal, and tern. Yes, next. This here, during our survey, we have recorded oysters and as well as green mussel bird in Muthupetta Lagoon ecosystem. And normally green mussels is not recorded beyond Kadalur coast in Tamil Nadu. But this area is having a bed of green mussel, which is shown here along with the oyster bird. This is the first time which we have recorded during our survey in 2017, such a distribution of this oyster and mussel bird at this lake long. And here, finfishes, as far as fish diversity is concerned, nearly 73 brackish water fish, finfish species are found in these areas, and they offer a good livelihood opportunity for these local fishermen. And this investigation, which we have carried out as part of ecological and biological sensitive area studies, there we had used nearly 12 criteria and 34 indicators. And this is an ongoing project of CMFRI. And as per these criteria, we have categorized Muthupetta Lagoon ecosystem as a high level of relevance, EPSA, and the framing of EPSA characteristics and the framework work is going on. And already this Muthupetta Lagoon ecosystem is an ecotourism spot, but strengthening this ecotourism initiative is very vital for managing this important fragile ecosystem along this east coast. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I will go to the next presentation.
Please.
Next presentation also is only. Yeah.
Yeah, mine. Yes, second is that beach coast seagrass like diversity along coastal Ramanathapuram district and its management. Actually, this is a very new area as far as research is concerned. Normally,
Could you open? One, then.
Are you audible? Can you see? Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, this beach coast seagrass, normally when we walk along the beach, we may see the seagrass and the other seaweeds are stranded on the beaches. And this is not at all managed. So here I am proposing our alternative option for this. What is a beach coast? Beach coast refers to a coast of a seaweed and seagrass and the source during rough weathers. This natural recline is a key component of a healthy beach ecosystem. And normally this beach coast is not much used, or even no use has been found so far, and it is simply ignored. So here I am proposing a new avenue for this. We have studied this area, especially this Ariyaman beach along the Park Bay coast, nearly for a period 2017 to 2020 in a 2 kilometers stretch area of Ariyaman beach. It is located on the Park Bay side. On this side, this is the particular area of the Ariyaman beach. It is a tourist attraction beach. And here during northeast monsoon, the heavy winds gust and this Park Bay boasts nearly 3,000 hectares of seagrass area, which is an important critical habitat in Park Bay, as already Dr. Ravi has pointed out. And seagrass ecosystem as an important critical ecosystem in Tamil Nadu, and that may not be the case for Andhra or anywhere else. So such a critical ecosystem and nearly 9 different species of seagrasses which we have recorded along the beaches of Ariyaman during this rough seasons, especially northeast monsoon season, November to January, when the wind carried waves brings all these 9 different species of seagrasses on shore. And the dominant beach wreck seagrass species is Ringodium isolithifolium and Cymodacea cerulata. These are the 2 species among the 9 different species of seagrasses. And we have recorded nearly around 2.5 tons of seagrass wreck in a kilometer stretch per annum wet weight basis along these beaches of Ariyaman. And if we have used this particular data to arrive at a tentative figure for the entire area of Park Bay, and this would comes around 550 tons of dry weight basis. Even if half of this is utilized, this biomass is utilized, and it would give a important energy source for the coastal communities. And I am proposing here some of the activities. Before that, this is another activity which we have recorded during our studies, that during northeast monsoon, the boats are allowed to graze on this mineral-rich seagrass wreck along the Park Bay. From this particular activity, we have taken cue and have started proposing this management option. And currently, there is no management practice as far as beach coast seagrass is concerned. But as we look at some of the references, due to the climate change and the coastal development, the retention of a beach wreck is going to be there, or it will be on the increasing side. So there is a need to utilize this biomass, and which is so long ignored or not at all any use is developed. So I am proposing a management option of this beach coast seagrass here. One is compost, another is biocharcoal. As you know that Ramanathapuram district is a dry district, and already for making this Loban and Sambrani, and this Prosopis julifera charcoal industry is very much is in use here along the Ramnath coast. So I am proposing this biocharcoal making using the seagrass wreck is also can be taken up along this coast to provide additional livelihood opportunity for the coastal communities, as well as this mineral-rich seagrass. Since already the boat rearing people are using this as a feedstock, so this can be used as a compost, as a manure, or otherwise an animal feed. So this has to be developed into that, so that this waste, which so far has not been found any use, can be utilized. Already seaweeds are used even for manure as well as for getting plant growth promoters. In similar way, this can also be used as a compost material or as well as a feedstock material for animal feed. And biocharcoal preparation also can be attempted. So these are some of the way forward management option for this beach coast seagrass wreck, which is a sizable quantity of these materials available during this northeast monsoon time along the Park Bay coast. And many agencies, since many NGOs and other scientific people are there, so they will be giving, I am requesting to put a recommendation that this beach coast seagrass is important biomass material has to be put into use through this kind of management actions for getting benefits for the coastal communities. Because this biochar and the compost potential should be evaluated. These are some of the viable environmental solution, and we can get some value added commercially product from this also. And use of seagrass biocharcoal is relatively new and so far unexplored in India. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Saravanan Raju, for your very informative and nice presentation. And your first presentation, and you have made an important point of using criteria and indicators for developing conservation plan for biologically sensitive zones. And as far as seagrass management is concerned, and your talk has thrown some new lights, and I appreciate that. And seagrass management by assessing the beach cast and goats grazing on seagrasses is something I think that needs to be taken up largely. And also, I think there is a need to assess the milk and meat quality of goats that graze on seagrasses, so that it will have better take-up. And using seagrasses, because I have seen many resorts all over the world have a lot of problems in maintaining this beach cast seagrasses, because they have to employ people to particularly manage like swimming pools, and making use of this compost and in compost making and biocharcoal and promoting it as a livelihood option for locals is a very welcome note. And also, it also can be used as an alternative for a post office, because post office sometimes becomes an very invasive, so that it becomes uncontrollable. And I thank you for making such good presentations and in time. Thank you very much once again. And I request to co-chair Dr. Pandurangan to make his remarks before I conclude. Over to you, Dr. Pandurangan.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Ravishankar. Almost all the presenters are there. Actually, there will be we had 6 lead presentations and 4 scientists presented their findings. It will be very useful, because even though we are 40 minutes late, doesn't matter. We had a wealth of information from all their presentations, and definitely we can make use of it for further research and also for the policy making and also for betterment of the environment to manage. So because coastal environment is very unique, and the density of the people are much, because almost 25 to 30% of the people are living along the coast. So their impact will be always there. Definitely we should develop an alternative method to sustain the biological resources on which our survival depends. That is what I want to conclude. And I thank all the eminent speakers and the researchers. And I wish all of you good luck and have a great day. Thank you very much. And we look forward to interact with your future, because we are having all your address. You are free to write to me, and we will also write to you, so that we can exchange our ideas and other things, so that a better research can be evolved in the future also. Thank you, Mr. Saravanan Raju, for the last 2 of your presentation. Of course, I have visited twice Muthupeta Lagoon. It's almost extended to 16.5 square kilometer. It's a very beautiful thing. There is one point is they have one point actually called I forget that the former PCCF name. There is one point is there inside. That I forget. I think he was Dr. Ravishankar. That PCCF served with your MS Swaminathan Foundation initially.
John Joseph.
John Joseph.
John Joseph. They call it as a Joseph Point. When I went there, the local people called me, sir, this is Joseph Point. Then I asked why. This they told they recollected when John Joseph was a conservator of that area. He actually devised that just like a fishbone model for rehabilitation, restoration like that. So it is very nice. Everybody has now replicated in other areas also. And thank you, Dr. Mandal, for you are also having very nice presentation.
Thank you, sir.
Put the dynamics.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, dynamics is very important to understand the dynamics actually, how sear takes place actually in the particularly in mangrove areas. And I have visited it also there, your area during the Biosphere Reserve meeting.
Okay, you are welcome once more.
Along the lagoon up to Bangladesh border actually.
Okay.
So along with the joint secretary and special secretaries, we were there actually 1 week. And Dave was also there as part of Sundarban coordinator. So it's very nice. And thank you, Mr. Ramasubramaniam. Thank you very much for joining with us, and have a great day. Thank you very much. Please.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, and first of all, I would like to thank Indian Society of Coastal Agricultural Research and ICR Institution of Central Soil Salinity Research Institute, Karnal, for organizing this very important international symposium on coastal agriculture.
Yes.
And particularly, I thank Dr. Sen for inviting all of us and bringing all of us together in making this presentations under this theme. And I thank Dr. Murali, Dr. Rabindranath Mandal, Dr. Ramasubramanian, Dr. Ajanta Day, Dr. Pandurangan, Dr. Deepanjan Das Majumdar, Dr. Swagata Bera, Dr. Saravanan Raju, for patiently listening to everybody. And also, though we have overshot late night, we have contributed ourselves, and all the presentations from global to local, addressing all the UN conventions and the sustainable development goals, and providing lot of information and management guidelines for better conservation of mangroves and coastal resources. And these type of presentations give us more energy to contribute more, so that we sustainable management is something like using the resources now and also making sure that it is available to future generations. All our efforts will certainly be helpful in passing on our natural resources to the posterity without much damage. I conclude this session by thanking each and every one of you for your
Ravi,
contribution.
thank you for
Thank
our
you very much.
rapporteur also. Our rapporteur,
Thank
thanks
you,
for
our
rapporteur.
rapporteur Swagata Bera.
Swagata. Yeah.
Thank you very much, and I hope you have pointed out. If you want anything, kindly ask me. I will give you my notes.
Say
Thank
hi
you very
to
much.
Das Majumdar also. He was also there.
Yes, yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, and we will hand over to the organizer.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Thank
Good
you, sir.
night to everyone.
Yes. Yes.
Good night, sir.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.